Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to the Foundation School, Christchurch Foundation School, and to Christchurch Speaks. This is the sixth in our series. This is a national event of talking with Barbadians, and it is non-partisan, so feel free to share your commentary, your questions, whatever. There are a number of senior public officers here, as well as members of the cabinet, along with the MPs from the constituency. We know you're going to have a lot to say tonight, so we don't want to take up a lot of time with introductions. We're going to go straight to the Prime Minister and then to you. There's a single mic. As fast as we get to the mic, we will hear you. We ask that you identify yourself first so that there is a record. And given the size of this parish, that you try to keep your presentations as succinct as possible so everybody can get in and we can be out by 9:30, 10 o'clock. Again, I ask that everyone...
I didn't set the time.
Well, in that case, I defer to Prime Minister. We're here all night. But please...
I won't say all night, but we're not setting any time in truth but I do have public officers here, so I just want us to be conscious of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Just in terms of housekeeping, let us offer everyone who speaks the dignity of listening to them. We may not necessarily agree on everything, but let's respect each other's views tonight, and let's keep the meeting as all of the others have been so far. After tonight, we do St. Michael next month, then we take a break in December and return to St. Lucy, then St. Peter, and then St. Thomas in January, February, and March in that order, and we would have completed the whole island. So the rest of tonight belongs to you. To members of the head table, at the other meetings we had some issues with microphones. So all of the microphones are on, all of the microphones have been tested. The challenge is that if you shift them around, then the songman does not know which number you have. So when you're not hearing, it's because he's trying to figure out which microphone should be hearing, you should be hearing through the speaker. So keep the microphones where they are, and the night should go fine. Prime Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much, Roy. I'm not going to talk much at the opening because I want to give you all as much time to be able to ask questions. I don't think that I need to introduce the 5 members of Parliament. They're well known to you. And obviously the Deputy Prime Minister is next to me, but we do have other ministers and public officials also in the audience. And over to you. The floor is open. This is part of our deepening of democracy.
I had here early.
All right, but even though, let's just spread out a little bit. Even though, colleagues, everyone. Okay. Thank you.
Good night.
You may have to take off the mask in order for me to understand what you're saying. So, not fooling you. Okay, and that's why I said if people don't feel comfortable standing close to each other, zigzag, so that you have the order, but not the closeness. Make sense?
Yes.
And you may want to bring the mic forward a little more to accommodate the people at the back.
Oh.
Sorry, if you can help her, thank you. Thank you.
Good night. My name is Cheryl Ali. And I won't say the problem.
You're going to have to just fix the mic. Somebody fix the mic for her, please. And because when you move your mouth, your voice can come in and out.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Thank you, love.
Yes. Good night. My name is Cheryl Ali. I have a concern. Justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. Everybody know that. I have a case in the court. I wouldn't discuss the matter, but it is in connection with a house. And, you know...
People are still not hearing you, ma'am. So that's why I'm saying
okay.
that I'm not sure what's happening. You might just have to...
Right. Oh,
Or you
thank
might
you.
have to speak a little louder.
Okay. I said earlier, my name is Cheryl Allen. And my problem is justice delayed is justice denied. I have a case before the court going 7 years with a house that I had rented out. Not me, my father had rented out. Waiting on justice, he passed away. Justice was denied to him. And this is 7 years since 2016. And the house that they're running down with the bush. All these ceiling, everything dropping down. I can't go and repair it. And I feel that in cases like these, Your Honor, you hired some judges, and still cases taking for
Which
years.
part of Christchurch it is?
Parish land.
Parish Lamb.
Yes.
No problem.
And
I just trying from the point of view of making sure that I have the right person liaise with you after.
Yes.
All right?
Ma'am, you got a good memory.
So that-
You have a good memory.
Justice delayed.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
And
we-
7 years?
Yes. And we need to have cases speed up in
And
court.
what's the kind of case? Is an eviction? What is it?
Well, I took the case to court for when you want to evict the body because they refused to pay the rent.
Right?
And then, I don't really want to say it, but a meticulous lawyer, if there's a word to say, decided to carry it to high court, even though he know that he really didn't have no grounds. And when the judge said to him, well, you can carry it to high court, he said, she will get the house. But the lady old, she can die. He said, but she will be satisfied. You know, and it's taking so long. I am a disabled person, Your Honor. Sandra can tell you that. I need the money to help me. You understand? And, you know, and you know, the little disability pension ain't doing nothing for me.
That's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And I can't, there's something called separation of powers.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been talking a lot about it recently. But I trust and pray that in your speaking, the matter will be brought to the attention of the administrator of the judiciary,
But I hope that
who is the Chief Justice. And to that extent, I'd like to suggest also that you write him. And if you've written one before, or the previous one before, that you write again.
Who is the Chief Justice, ma'am?
Sir Patterson Cheltenham. And
Okay.
that we would then be in a position to be able to, in any event, account for them. I spoke earlier. Thank you. I spoke earlier in the last few days about the fact that 80% of the criminal cases that are murder cases that are now before the court exists for murders before June 2018. And almost 80% of the cases that are gun cases are for charges before June 2018. I've done the most extraordinary thing in recommending to the cabinet that we agree, in addition to the 3 judges that we added, that we add another 3
Yes.
to deal with that. We've also literally been trying to get the judicial system to adopt more mediation. There are too many cases going before the court that, quite frankly, and maybe I shouldn't say so as a lawyer for the lawyers, but I'm saying so, that quite frankly do not need to go before a complex justice system, and that can be solved through mediation, through transparent and appropriate rules or arbitration, mediation, conciliation. And therefore, I hear you. I want to urge you, and I will ask the Director of Citizen Engagement, Mr. Morris, to help you if you need help in terms of how to structure out the letter. But ultimately, I want you to know that matters pertaining to the substance of administration of justice is not something I can get into. I can say, give them more judges. I can say, apply more money. I can say, let us deal with the court system. But as it relates to, Ralph, which case is being heard where, and who is hearing the cases, separation of powers is very clear.
But right in the Chief Justice, ma'am, I won't be victimized.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
And the truth is that those are some of the things I want to change about this country. You know, there are people who tell me that I shouldn't be coming here to meet with the population. You know, seriously, there are people who tell me that I'm setting a bad precedent. But I feel that if I can't sit down and talk with the people of Barbados, somebody trying to cut me out already. If I can't sit down and talk with the people of Barbados, I ain't telling you that every time I sit in this chair, I can know the answer. I'm not even telling you that every time I sit in this chair, that I can solve every problem.
That's true.
But if I don't hear the people of Barbados without a filter,
Yes.
without somebody filtering it for me,
Yes.
if the cabinet doesn't hear the people of Barbados without it being filtered for them, then what are we doing?
It's true.
We're making ourselves hostage to certain situations.
It's true.
So however easy, however hard, however simple, however whatever, let's sit down, because the one thing I know is that we're one family as one nation.
Yes. Yes.
Okay? Thank you very much.
I call you to speak to you later as well.
Sorry?
Oh, Cheryl. Yeah, she didn't hear you. You said you would speak to me later. I hope you get your promise.
Roy is going to make
Yes.
sure
Yes.
that he can
He will
facilitate.
forget my name.
No. And the beautiful thing, look, setting up this department with citizen engagement is perhaps one of the best things I've done since coming to office.
Wonderful.
Because it means, I don't think you all know the amount of letters, the amount of emails, the amount of everything that I get every day in a small state. Because everything comes to a prime minister. They feel a prime minister can solve everything. Not necessarily true. But at least I have people now,
Yeah.
and he can tell you, and we have a grid, and we see who we follow up on, make sure we know progress, we track progress, we move forward.
Okay.
We can't solve everything, but we're going to certainly work our hardest to.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, panel. The name is Mark Hurley. I come from a neighborhood that is on one side of the highway heading
Mark,
towards the
sorry?
airport. Hurley, H-U-R-L-E-Y. Thank you. And this neighborhood is on one side of the highway. On the other side of the highway, there's another neighborhood. And in this neighborhood, there is a bar, nightclub that's been set up within the last year, roughly within the last year. Now, the issue is, and I even spoke to a... Sorry?
What's the neighborhood?
Our neighborhood is Coverley.
Coverley.
Yeah, Coverley Stage 2. So on the other side, there's another neighborhood, and there is a bar or nightclub that's been set up between December last year and January or so. Now, I actually spoke to a technician today, a sound technician. I'm not going to call his name, but he's probably trained pretty much every sound technician in Barbados. And he was explaining the phenomenon behind what we are experiencing. So the nightclub plays its music, and by all assumption, they've got a license to do so. Now, I've been told at one stage that...
I wouldn't assume, because I've learned in this country a lot of things happening without the requisite permission.
Fair
So that's
enough.
the first thing. So the first thing we need to do is to check and see whether the permissions have been given.
Right, okay.
Second thing, go ahead.
Secondly, so I've been told that the distance for a loud music license is, I think, 30 meters. Now, I'll tell you this, I play golf and I have a laser scope that can tell you exactly how far you are from me. And I know that we are more than 30 meters away from said location, right? Now, the phenomenon that was explained to me is that the noise leaves the establishment, but when you're on the highway itself, you can't hear the noise because the establishment is above about 8 or so feet.
That's how the wind blows.
There you go.
Got you.
So this comes across. Now, it just so happens that my wife and I have actually, we should be getting them installed next week, buying new windows, trying to drown out the noise. I didn't need to buy windows, right? We've spoken to all sorts of people about it. Mr. Abrams is shaking his head because we saw him at AgriFest, right? We spoke to a lot of people about it. We're just trying to figure out what or why there's a nightclub there, and if there's supposed to be a nightclub there because okay, it's legal, it's fine, it's thing. What can we do that the neighbors on the other side don't suffer?
I think I've heard enough to ask for a review and a study to be done. William, let me see, William. From a planning perspective, we need to find out whether planning permission was given, and then we need to take it from there with the different environmental departments and to do a report. And Mr. Hurley, if you give your information to Mr. Morris so that we can contact you afterwards. And I take it you live in Coverley, as you just said.
Yes.
Which Coverley? The old
Coverley Stage 2.
Stage 2. Thank you.
And I'll say this for the third time, you're going to go down in history. I told you twice before.
Thank you, love.
You're welcome.
Come around to Roy behind and give a phone number. But these are the things that we are coming here to be able to help deal with and resolve. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister and members of the head table.
If you can, thank you.
Madam Prime Minister, members of the head table. I just passed out a handout to the head table having to do with floods in Dover, St. Lawrence.
What's your name, though, sir?
My name is Richard Terrelong from 39 Dover.
Thank you. How do you spell your last name?
T as in Thomas, E-R-R-E-L-O-N-G-E.
Got you.
First name Richard.
L-O-N-G.
And I've documented areas of flooding in Dover, St. Lawrence. It has been going on for over a decade. Nothing has been ever done. Nobody from the government must ever drive through this area in the rain because this has been going on for much too long. If there's ever a serious hurricane, these drainage problems are going to cause serious issues for the local residents. We have a number of million-dollar condos and homes and also small houses. And we love all of our neighbors and we love the businesses in the area. So this has got to be fixed. The next thing is
I want to be able. Do you have an extra copy, or should I give this copy to the head of the drainage unit?
Yeah. I assume the government can make as many copies as it wants. Okay.
You're going to have to speak to it. So I just want Mr. Yearwood to see the photographs.
Yes. The next point is St. Lawrence Church. Apparently, something is afoot with St. Lawrence Church that may disturb it. That is a historic church. It sits in a place where the religious...
Something is afoot to being... Sorry, I'm missing what you're saying.
Something is afoot with St. Lawrence Church. I don't know what. But it gave the minister and other people at the last community meeting concern. St. Lawrence Church is a historic church that I first attended in 1953. But and it was there long before that. No, and I don't think we should disturb that church.
Sorry, sir. To the best of my knowledge, there is nothing that I am aware of, Minister Duguid, Senior Minister, that will affect, involve, alter, stop, do anything to St. Lawrence Church.
Fine, but they were talking about building a channel and a marina up just beyond this going by.
Nothing to do with St. Lawrence Church.
Fine. Okay, I'll accept your word on that. The next thing is...
I hope that the rest of the cabinet, even after I am gone, follow my word on that.
Well, if they don't, they'll have to follow our word. And the next thing, Madam Prime Minister, the property seizures. We seem to have a tendency in Barbados to seize people's property by eminent domain, turn it over to a developer where the value goes up by an order of magnitude. The generations of people that are trying to build generational wealth with that property lose out on that property increase. I don't think the government should seize property on behalf of some developer. Let the developer negotiate their own property deals, and then if there's some overriding community concern, then the government can perhaps get involved and negotiate. My next point is, I want to get through this so that I don't want to keep you long.
So fast that I'm not being able to write. I don't want to be able to write.
Yeah, but I know you, Prime Minister. You have a great memory.
No. Not when I have not eaten much today. So just let me get a chance to write, because these meetings are not for the sake of it.
Right,
they are genuinely for us to follow through on.
And I expect follow through.
And let me address them one at a time, so that. On the issue of eminent domain, that's not a term Bajans are accustomed to. But what it is compulsory acquisition. Right. And under our law, regrettably, because we live in a small space, there are some things, and the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, which was previously our highest court, is still the highest court of the government of Antigua and a lot of the other Eastern Caribbean islands, will tell you, as does the Constitution, as do our laws, that there will be some occasions where property is acquired in the national interest. And regrettably, what is that? That if we don't agree, can we get some... that if property is acquired in the national interest, that the compensation shall be fair, but that we recognize that there are some things that we have to do in the national interest. So that's all that it is.
Well, I understand the national interest, and I respect that. However, developers' interests don't necessarily conform to the national interest. And
Not
that's my
necessarily,
objection to
and
it.
I agree with you, but there are some instances where it does.
And I agree with you.
And there's a particular case from Antigua, and I'm sorry that the Attorney General isn't here, but where are you? Oh, you came now. So you can speak to that after if you want, the Antiguan case, which you're well familiar with, as am I. Go ahead, sir.
Well, we don't want our neighborhoods of St. Lawrence, Dover, and anywhere else destroyed in the interest of developers without consultation with the
Oh,
residents.
there will never be any case of no consultation. That's why I'm here. And that's why every EIA or town hall meeting, William, requires consultation, doesn't it? So I can give you that
Okay,
assurance.
but I want the residents, especially the smaller residents, the less income residents, to benefit from any property appreciation, because it goes up by an order of magnitude when some big developer takes it over.
My dear, rest assured, there is no other government in the world that has decided to give their citizens who own property the right to being able to earn from the rooftops with renewable energy. And we've said 2.5, 5, and 10 kilowatt. And we have said if you want something different from that, you can apply. But as of right, according to the size of your house, we are giving you the right to be able to have that.
Yeah, but
and that is a
that's
property right.
That was not my point. Okay, my
I
next
know it
issue.
wasn't your point, but I'm just saying that I just want you to be aware that the attitude of this government is in fact to enfranchise and not to take away.
Thank you. And my next issue is parking. And there's they want to take over a building just east of the gas station from Grain Hall or Top Rock Roundabout. And they want to make or maybe below it, I don't know. And they want to take it over and make it into a multi-story parking lot to ease the parking on St. Lawrence Gap. Now that sounds fine, except the track record of the people that want to make this parking lot are the same people that invested in a parking lot across from the Bridgetown Fish Market, and everybody knows how unsuccessful that project was. It's empty. So now, if you walk on St. Lawrence Gap, you will understand the parking problem on St. Lawrence Gap are taxis and delivery vehicles. That's the problem. And those people are not going to use a parking structure built blocks away. The next thing is somebody wants to build a marina and a swamp and take over the swamp, which is a wetland that's been protected by a former member of this party, that's protected under an international convention that we signed, saying we're not going to mess with those wetlands. We have a wetland just up the street that we dump sewage in for years, and that's still a more viable place to kind of make a national park not marina, but national park wildlife wetland. Next point is, I do not want to see constitutional amendments made by a party, a single party. The people of Barbados need to have a vote in constitutional issues. I got 2 more points. I think our government is too costly. I don't know why it's so costly, but it costs too much. It can be more efficient, but it's got to be more efficient in a more intelligent way. We've got ID cards that are supposed to go out. You can't get the ID cards. You got stickers that are supposed to go on back of license plates. We can't get those stickers. We got license cards that are supposed to go out, and you got to stand in horrendous lines to get the new license cards. So our cost of government is not in line with, and it's a principle called guns or butter. What the government spends, the private industry can't spend. So we need to shrink the government down and make it more efficient, not less services. And finally, my final point is transparency is something this government talks about, and I applaud that. But it's not only transparency. You need to come to the people that know what's going on in their neighborhoods and say, okay, how should we design this? What should we do? If we're going to build a marina, come and ask us if that's the right priority for Dover St. Lawrence, right? Somebody's got to start involving the citizens and not think we're so arrogant that we know up there will come in transparency to you, tell you what we're going to do, and by the way, you got to eat it. Madam Prime Minister, members of the head table, thank you for your time.
I thank you for allowing me to give you the opportunity to speak.
Good evening. I don't want to touch it in case it goes wrong.
Mr. Thurlong, when you finish, you can let the others know which car park you're talking about in Bridgetown that was acquired or taken by somebody, because I genuinely at a loss. So Mr. Morris can check with you after. Yes, ma'am. I'm not aware of any planning car park also that you're talking about. I think that you're listening to a lot of stuff, and with all due respect, Mr. Thurlong, I finished work this evening. The reason why I'm a few minutes late is that I had the chief town planner, the deputy chief town planner, and the other planner there from 1 o'clock today on a range of issues. And I can tell you definitively, Mr. Duguid, you want to speak, please?
Hello, yes. So I've just again reached out because I've heard this rumor before, and I've again reached out to the Director of Planning. He says he's not aware of any high-rise or any car parking plan for the area by the gas station there in St. Lawrence.
It's easy to say things. That's all I can tell you. Mr. Thorne gave you that. Mr. Thorne, you want to speak? You're aware of a high-rise building? High-rise car park? That's what Mr. Thurlaw is saying. You're not aware?
Where's the... How are you, by the way?
It's not me, it's the gentleman.
Oh, Richard? Come, Richard, come.
At the last meeting that you attended, we talked about a multi-story car park being built in a building that's been derelict for a long time, right on the edge of the main St. Lawrence Main Road. We talked about that multi-story car park, and I don't know why that is. And right across from the Bridgetown Fish Market, there's a parking structure that was built by the Ministry of Tourist and Industry or whatever it is, spent millions of dollars in it. It was never used for purpose. They had to move the passport building in and shut down the parking structure in order to use this. Now, those kind of decisions just drive our cost and our debt and our deficit out the window. We need to stop that kind of stuff.
Richard, look. I believe in citizens' engagement, and I believe that if you have a concern, that you have a right to be heard. Okay?
Okay.
Bath Village? On the main road. Across from St. Lawrence. That's what.
I'm asking Mr. Thorne to address what he was told as he understands it, because I am totally and completely at a loss as what's going on here, because it seems like rumor upon rumor upon rumor. Please.
All right. We held a meeting in Dover, and prior to that meeting, there was also an article in the paper. And I can't speak for the ministry, although the minister is here, but I can say, Prime Minister, that the residents, there was talk of a high-rise car park proposed for the old supermarket building. There was talk of that. This is not the first time it's being mentioned. Yeah? I cannot speak for the ministry as to whether it is so or not, but at that meeting, that was mentioned. Yes, Dwight, there was talk of that. Yes, please. Please come and address it.
Minister, and when Minister is finished, Mr. Yearwood, address the issue of the flooding, please.
Thank you. Good night to everyone gathered. I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago when we assembled at the town hall meeting on the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, along with the Minister of Small Business and the member for Christchurch South. At no time at all during the discourse did the Ministry of Housing articulated or mention any high-rise apartment. What was mentioned, car park, sorry. What was mentioned was the acquisition of 25 parcels of land at Dover, Bath Village, St. Lawrence Main Road, and St. Lawrence Gap. And with respect to the car park, what was discussed was the car park at Bath Village. On the northern side, when you leave Brady's Bar, you're descending from Brady's Bar, you make the first left turn, and on your right is Dover Plainfield and Dover Pavilion, and on the left is an open car park. And within there, we have about 5 to 6 parcels of land. Only today, one of the landowners visited the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance and discussed with us the acquisition process, and she's satisfied. At no time at all did we mention building any high-rise car park there. We spoke on 3 areas: Bath Village, St. Lawrence Main Road, and St. Lawrence Gap. And actually, the acquisition of the parcels of land in St. Lawrence Gap was done prior to Cricket World Cup to make St. Lawrence Gap ready to attract those persons who came here from the various territories, tourists, cricketers, whatever. And we built sidewalks. We acquired land outside of the church. I keep hearing this talk about acquisition of the church, and thank you, Prime Minister. In no way at all have we identified the church in any of the 25 parcels that we intend to acquire. And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify.
Thank you, Mr. Yearwood.
Good night. Good night, Charles Yearwood, Senior Technical Officer, Drainage Division.
You have to talk a little louder, Skipper. Use one of these mics, because it looks
Charles,
as though you want to
I'm
talk.
very close, sir.
No, but come. Don't you talking to me, you're talking to the public, Skipper.
Everyone. Good night, everyone. Charles Yearwood, Drainage Division, Ministry of Public Transport, Work and Water Resources. Yes, we are aware that Dover, some parts of Dover and St. Lawrence Gap does flood. The concerns are over time you had, in the 90s, you had a less area of flood, or height of flooding across the area. We had outfalls that drained from the St. Lawrence Gap to the sea. A number of these seaside developments have reduced the size of the outfalls. In particular, the worst one would have been Dover Convention, the former Dover Convention Center, that has, in fact, moved the outfall in total. So there's some water. We had to put in French drains. We tried systems to reduce the water in the road. But we've had, with climate change, higher intensities of rain and greater areas, water now running onto the road from other lands. In Dover itself, there were a number of open spaces. There were residential areas, but they weren't developed. And these were areas used to pump water off the road. These lands now have been developed in townhouses, and most of the areas have been hard covered. So you have additional water and a great intensity of flooding. Over time, we have, while we look for solutions, we have been doing flood responses and pumping water. But we have recognized that we need to have a greater study of the area to come up with the options, because they have what we call sometimes duck ponding or low areas of water, but usually nuisance flooding. When you have heavy intense rains, then you have more persons affected by the water. But we have to either pump it off or the water goes off over time. We will have to do a study, because we don't know where all the outfalls in terms of the legal work is. But we need to find out if the lands were drainage reserves or acquire those lands and push the water back to the sea.
Thank you. We did 2 rubbing shoulders in recent months. I'm sorry that Dover wasn't one of the ones. And DPM, I'd like you to go and visit that with Mr. Yearwood and the Member of Parliament, Mr. Thorne, and see how this can be addressed, please. I regret that it wasn't one of the ones I was taken to. Okay? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Margaret Morgan. I live in Atlantic.
Margaret Morgan?
Correct.
Thank you.
I live in Atlantic Shores. I have a few queries. I shall keep them brief. But before I start, I know, Prime Minister, you haven't got a magic wand. But I still want you to know that each and every one of us needs a little help in whichever way. One of my short briefs, in Atlantic Shores, there's a lot of unsightly, dangerous, hanging loose pole cables. You can have the sheet after. Beautification comes in many formats. BWA, or whoever is responsible for tidying up after the water works, never do it properly.
This is, you mean reinstatement on the ground of the pipes that are...
When they correct the burst pipe...
Yeah, got you, reinstatement. Thank you, I agree with you.
You can have this.
I agree with you entirely.
BWM, I hope I've got those initials correctly. I have been in contact with them since 2019 about speed bumps, ramps in Coral Drive. In 2021, Mr. Jason Bowen, he did a speed test and agreed that Coral Drive do need some sort of speed ramp bump. I'm still waiting.
Fret not yourself. It's going to be DPM,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you can have this after.
Yeah, no, I make my own
You can have
notes
this.
too.
I've
So,
got a copy.
Unsightly cables,
No,
we
you
need
can
to
have
find
this,
out
please.
who they are.
You can have this.
Go ahead,
I get very nervous, so let me continue.
no problem.
I will lose my... Vehicles that were made for off-road usage is being driven in residential areas recklessly and very noisy. Now, my main grief is case number CV1610/2017, and that boils my blood. My husband and I decided to retire and come to Barbados. We were put in contact with a company by the name of Best Invest Barbados, laugh, to build our home. In 2014, we gave them the contract. We were promised a 4-star finish, and what we were given is a white elephant. I hope everybody knows what that means. I was told to be respectful.
Please, because remember, at the end of the day, we are not a court. So go ahead. Just breathe. Take your time and talk. Take your time.
From 2017, the court was given our white elephant. And what the court has given us, your guess is as good as mine. My grief is two lying, thieving so-and-sos gotten away with a crime.
All right, you know.
That's the worst. That's the worst I go.
Thank you. Thank you.
I had to say that because that is what they are. And they've gotten away with a crime worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that seems to be okay on this island. No disrespect to you, ma'am. Why I say that? Because we were not the first. Before 2014, nor were we going to be the last since 2017. We, the innocent, the victim, are told it's a civil matter, get a lawyer. Well, That's another slap in the face for us. If a poor man steals $100 or less in merchandise from a store, that's a criminal offense. And off to prison he goes. But for two people who are not poor, or hungry can steal hundreds of thousands of dollars and walk away free. Is that fair? I'm asking the panel now. Is that fair? Is that right? Is that justice? Doesn't the government think that it's time to change the system? Not only into the change to stop the thieving, blank, 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 from carrying on.
I think you know a little better, ma'am. Your point has been made without you having to do two wrongs don't make a right.
I know.
Remember that. Two wrongs do not make a right.
Yeah, but when
somebody has aggrieved, let me summarize it. Somebody has aggrieved you in an egregious way.
Very.
The matter is before the court. I have already, hold on, I don't know whether it's finished or not. If it is not finished, it means that it is sub judice. And the Attorney General can tell you that we can't comment on any matters that are sub judice. By the same token, if you're talking as Ms. Aline did at the very beginning, very respectfully, about the fact that you have a problem with the delays in justice, I get you, so do I. That's why I have increased the number of judges twice in a way that no previous prime minister has probably done. So let's be very clear about that. But I can't, I've explained enough to let you know that I can't go in and administer justice. No. Okay? And I want you to know, regrettably, and I take no pride in this, yours is not the only one
that is my
that
point.
Has been the
that is my point.
But that's the point I'm making too. And that is why, over the course of the time, different things have been done to literally deconstruct how the rules of the Supreme Court, you had new rules introduced when I was Attorney General there. Well, they had new rules introduced. Since then, we've also had other things done, but the reality is that the society is far more litigious than it was, maybe with good cause too, than it was before. So that the scale of matters coming before the court has increased exponentially. What you heard me say at the beginning is that that is why we're encouraging mediation, conciliation, and arbitration so that people are not only relying on the formal court system, but people can get justice in other ways too. Okay?
Let me interrupt a minute. What you just said, we were supposed to go to arbitration, but the two blank, blank, blank were so clever and smart with the system. Well, that's why it needs to be changed. Because they say they were going, and then they come to the home saying they're going to do this, and then they're blank, blank, blank. Now, when I say the system have to be changed, because you can't step in personally, or any individual person cannot step in personally. But if the system is changed to stop what is happening and what has happened, to stop it happening, the system has to change.
That is exactly what we just said
Not with
to
an
you,
extra
ma'am.
judge and an extra two judges.
Madam, I didn't say the extra judge or two judges for civil. That's the first thing. I said the extra judges for criminal cases.
My blood is boiling.
Well, would you please sit down and let it come down? Because I don't want it to boil. Thank you. What I'm saying to you is that that is why we are also looking at arbitration, mediation, and conciliation. AG, you want to speak in any way? Because we've now had two comments related to the delays in the justice system. The first one was before you came.
No, I was here when I came in as the lady was speaking, Prime Minister. Let me begin by saying that on average, in any given year, we will have just shy of 2,000 civil cases filed in the High Court. Now, if you multiply that by 5, that gives you 10,000 civil cases, all of which have to receive some portion of the court's time. Recognizing that we had, in our view, too small a number of judges, we felt it was important to increase the number of judges so as to be able to put more manpower to address the cases. We've computerized the system of filing. We've done a whole set of initiatives, none of which by themselves will transform the legal landscape, but taken together, we expect that they will help to drive the number of cases through the system quickly. Now, but each case has its peculiarities. I've practiced law for over 30 years. Some are complex, some are not so complex. Some go through the system quickly, others don't. I understand that you are aggrieved and you feel that your case should have been finished far faster. I don't know what the facts are, so I can't specific. I'm sorry, what you're saying? So the case is finished. No, ma'am, I'm trying to understand. If you say you're waiting for a judgment, then that means that the case is finished and you're waiting for the judge to deliver his or her decision, okay? Now, one of the earliest things that we did was, Prime Minister, you'll recall, we amended the Constitution to provide that misconduct on the part of a judge could be constituted by delay in delivering a decision for over 6 months. Now, truth is, no judges have been punished for that. Both factors that are involved, punishing a judge for misconduct is one of the very, very last things that anybody would even think of doing. But we've tried to tighten up and make judges more accountable. It hasn't entirely succeeded, but I can tell you that there are a large number of litigants who are singing the praises of the system because in some instances, cases have gone through quickly. I don't know, I'm happy to discuss it with you afterwards, but please, if you do speak again, don't call anybody's name because the government will get sued for defamation and they can got another case to add to an already heavy caseload, okay? But I'm happy to have a chat with you afterward.
Ma'am, understand that we feel your pain, but we have to do things in accordance with due process still. Okay? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good night, Prime Minister.
And sorry, and thank you for raising the other things. I should tell you that the DPM will follow through on them. The cables overhead, the reinstatement of the roads by the Water Authority. We've been saying so over and over and over. And I believe that we've come to the stage now where somebody has to be held accountable within the entity. And thirdly, the third one was the speed bumps. That's an easy one. Mr. Bowen, if you say, has visited Mr. Tudor, please make sure that that's dealt with as a matter of urgency. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sheldine Dial. I'm having a lot of pain tonight from the Water Authority. I have a bill for $6,000. I managed to beat it down to $2,000. The problem was the meter. They tell me to pay $58.75, get the meter read. All the time before the meter was read, the bill was $500 and change when the month come. Now the meter come back, the bill come down to $200 and something. And up to this point, I wrote letters.
Okay, I want you to know, Sheldine, I'm going to say this as a rule for everybody. This is not a forum where individual issues pertaining to utilities, courts, anything. If people want to make a general point, I get you. If you want to make the individual point, you're going to come to my assistant or you're going to come to Mr. Morris. Because what I'm not going to do, there are 2, 3, and 4 sides to a story. And I'm saying so for the benefit of everybody now. Because as the AG just said, we're not going to be paying out money to nobody because we're allowing people to come to us in an unfiltered way. As it relates to the specific issue, I can assure you that my office will guarantee fairness. as it has been doing with others. And if there's a case that is justifiably wrong, then we will make the representation. But at the end of the day, the Water Authority is a separate legal authority governed by law with its own board of management. You got me?
Yes, please. Over you.
All right, so come next door here.
Come.
Shanda, please.
And thank
Alex,
you.
everybody line up to take the things.
I thank you for this right at car that you could travel free. I had it 4 weeks now.
The Lord bless you. Thank you. Thank you. They're coming out. They are coming out. Show Mr. Turlow for me.
Good night, Madam PM. My name is Stephen Street. My name is Stephen Street. I live at St. Matthias House in the area, Christchurch. You might be a farmer. Madam PM, the first thing I'd like to do in public is to commend your administration for the way you run this country.
Thank you. What's your name?
Stephen Street.
Thank you.
For the circumstances and the challenges you had within the last 4 years. But you know, the world ain't perfect. We ain't not perfect world. I got 5 small concerns, and I crave your indulgence to let me voice my concerns before you make any comments. Some mothers and grandmothers in my constituency, which is Christchurch West, they have to leave St. Matthias, Paddock Road, Dash Road, to go out to Oyston to collect children who had just gone to secondary schools in this area, Foundation, Dudgeon Griffith, Princess Margaret Lodge. But when the children come out, the bus drivers tell the children they can't get on the passenger bus. So the parents got to come up here. There's $7 to bring down the children, because the children get home at 5:30 in the evening.
I'm not sure they understand the issue, Mr. Street.
No, the children, this is their first term at school.
Okay.
Going to secondary school, so no, they don't want.
The parents don't want to send them home on the
No, they don't want to travel on the school bus. But when they get on the passenger bus at Oyston, the bus drivers tell them to get off. So the parents got to come for the children and get on the bus with them to come home and bring them home.
Somebody from Transport Board here, just to note. All right, go ahead.
Right.
Transport Board can speak to it after.
When we had 7 sanitation vehicles, every Wednesday, the people in St. Matthias House in there used to get collection of garbage every Wednesday morning. We got 7,000 trucks now. 7 times the 7 we had. And we getting collection now every 11 days, 12 days. And you would know how garbage will be in a housing area.
I hear you, and there's no reason for it.
Good.
So, because there certainly is more trucks, and therefore the issue is the deployment.
Now you know that the houses in St. Matthias House here.
Minister Ford, you've taken note? Thank you.
You know the houses in St. Matthias House here are transiting now to 220 voltage. And this was going on from, I think, about December. That matter, though that is not finished yet, and the reason we don't, they say that, I went to housing and spoke with some gentlemen there, and one of them said, tell me to get some money and we will get the thing done. So I beg you to get them some money. And let me get the wiring done.
Give them money for what? For severance?
To finish the project. To finish the project. Because they got raw wires in my house. I got warrants in my house.
And I would like you to know that up to yesterday, I visited, day before yesterday, Wharton, only to find out that the issue ultimately is a function of the lack of management at the National Housing Corporation.
So the man at National Housing tell me to give me money. So I tell you to get the money, let me get the thing done. All right, now I exercise in the morning, so I walk between on Hastings Road. I walk on Hastings Road, Rendezvous, and the gutters are full of debris. Full of debris. That's why when the water is on Highway 7, is on the road, because the gutters, there's so much debris that plants going through the grills. And there's a tourist belt, supposedly tourist
Agreed,
belt.
and I'm not only talking about tourist belts, I've made the same point in relation to the whole island. And I've been very, very clear, you've heard me speak to it up to recently again, about the need for the country to become clean and the fact that grass doesn't grow out of concrete. So if you're cleaning the area, even if I give you a week or 2 inches, inch or 2 inches of grass, when I see it at 4 and 6 and 8, it tell me you ain't been there for over a month. And therefore, we have to deploy better. The DPM and where's Rommel? Rommel Springer has been given responsibility along with the others, the chairman of the NCC, to make sure that we, and I spoke up to it last Saturday, to make sure that we allocate roads now, so that I know that if this stretch of the road is not clean, and these 2 people have this stretch, or these 3 people are the team on this stretch, first letter.
But the road's
If you don't clean it after the first letter, second letter. And the third letter is to tell you revoked. Because until we get to the point where we hold people accountable, we're not going anywhere. Okay? And in fairness, what I've said, the difference is that I don't believe, and that's why I've given the Parasec and the chairman of the NCC the responsibility. I don't believe that the deployment is what it should be. And until we get the deployment right, you can't hold the workers at the bottom responsible, because it is fundamentally a management issue, and we need to get the deployment, which is a management issue, correct before you start blaming the workers at the bottom. Go ahead, sir.
My final issue now is the ID card. I went to Park Hill with my mother to register to get the new ID card. I went in July. They told us come back the 7th of October. I went back in October and they told us that they are not ready yet. But they give us a number, and they told me to call this number in a week's time, 7th of October till now. The 2 numbers they give us. Yesterday now in the papers, the Electoral Boundary Commission issued 2 numbers. Call if you got a problem, if you ain't get your ID card. But the person at the other phones is a machine. So they ain't talking to me. The machine talking.
Except that what they may be doing, and let's also be clear, is that they may be recording the messages and clearing the message.
No.
But I agree with you that they would prefer to have somebody human on the other end. But don't discount the fact that in some instances people use the collection of recorded messages and then tell you they will call back. Okay? But please, Minister Ishmael, can we follow up?
But the machine didn't tell you nothing.
But I just
other than the message box full.
And therefore,
so they can't have a message of the box full.
And therefore, if you want me not to give the instruction to Minister Ishmael, I will keep quiet. Minister Ishmael, please correct it and find out what's happening there with the Boundaries Commission and the card. Okay? Go ahead. That's why I like these meetings, you know, because that's how I know what's going on.
I take my leave. I work on your directions to get my ID card.
Yeah, and you didn't see Miss Dash throw up the ID card just now and thank
But I
you.
get mine. I would need mine.
But I will let you to get yours too, because
You
then
know,
you
every
will-
Toppy Spring, the water flow freely, so it can be Toppy Spring.
But it may well be that
I
the top
want
of the
clear
spring,
water.
the top of the spring can't carry this weight.
When I went housing, the two men tell me, give me money and we can done the project. So he come here now to get money from you, not me, to get housing, to get the project done. Well, you know, Ms. Bradshaw and Linda Holder will deal with that issue with school children. I got a problem with that.
And let me know
And
also
Mr. Ford
say,
will deal with sanitation.
let me tell you how easy it is to call me a name. holler the word me, and then say, and that's how you call my name easy. You know, one of the few areas that we have pumped in, and the records will show it. So much so because of Hurricane Elsa and the freak storm has been in the area of housing. I am tired. Look, we have a problem in this country where people see a problem and sit back and do nothing. Now, if at the end of the day there are offices in National Housing Corporation, as we learned, the lady in Wharton, meter box, been waiting on now for 14 months. 14 months. You change out all the wiring done, you know. All the wiring done. But you haven't transferred her onto the new wired system because for 14 months, the meter has not been put in. And National Housing sits down and does nothing about it. And then when I come to speak about these issues, people are going to want to get vexed. Well, let me tell you something. That in the same way that the government will be held accountable, so shall everybody. I ain't making a sport. And secondly, apply your heart to wisdom. If the government found money to rewire housing estates, it is because the old wiring is not what? Everybody bright. It's not good. Therefore, for you to leave the old wiring operating for 14 months, having rewired the building, is an act of what? Of negligence. And these are the things that we are fighting out. Now, everybody can tell me, oh, mistress, COVID. Oh, we couldn't get X because of COVID. Oh, we couldn't do Y because of COVID. I hear you. But the majority of us are in here without a mask because COVID is predominantly behind us. Okay? Let us go forward and do the things that we know we have to do. Minister Sutherland, I ain't got no more to say.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Oh, good evening. My name is Liesl Daisley. I am here representing SAVE Foundation. SAVE is an organization that deals with domestic abuse. Yeah. So I'm basically here to be a voice for the voiceless. First of all, let me commend the government on a successful conference that you had last weekend. Excellent speech, Prime Minister, on Saturday. It was very inspiring, and it encouraged me to be a better citizen, which is why I am here tonight. Domestic violence is still a huge problem in this island, and COVID actually only made it worse. And I would like to see more support from government. NGOs, we're doing the best that we can on the ground, but we need support from government. And I'm not necessarily talking financial support, but support in general and cooperation. I don't know if we need like a victim's advocate that would walk victims through the process, which can be very daunting. I recently had a case with a lady, and she was being stalked. She and her partner had ended the relationship, but he was stalking her repeatedly, morning, noon, and night. I took her to the police station in her district, and she gave her statement. At the end of this statement, they said that she needs to go to the police station in his district. So we went to the police station in his district. She gave her statement, and then they told her that she needs to go to the police station in the district that he works in. So then I took her to the police station in the district that he works in.
Ms. Daisley, don't even bother to go no further. Write a formal report and let us have the AG deal with it, because that is wrong and it is unfair. But I also go further. To my certain knowledge, the police hires 1 or 2 people to be victim support persons in these circumstances. And what they should have done in the particular instance would have been to refer her to the particular victim support person. And secondly, they should have taken the statement regardless of what district it is. They must have understood that the person was traumatized and then simply email the statement to the requisite entity. Not true, AG? You pick the mic up if you want.
Let me apologize to you.
That's not even the end of the story.
Oh, you mean there's more?
When we eventually went to the...
No, but I think the PM has asked if you would just submit a
yeah, I
report,
want to finish
so.
my story if you don't mind. Thank you.
Please finish.
Thanks. When I eventually convinced her not to give up and to go to the magistrate court in her district, she was told by the clerk that she cannot apply for a protection order, that she does not qualify because she's no longer with her partner. And under the Domestic Violence Protection Orders Act, that is incorrect. When she eventually went back a week later, mustered up the courage to go back to apply again, and she was granted a court date. So she went back, and she went before the magistrate and was told, you know, the 2 of y'all need to behave yourselves and y'all should go to church.
It is a horror story. But I've also told you about the separation of powers. And that is clear to me that I hope the Chief Justice is listening to a lot of what is being said here. Because more than any other parish speaks, this is speaking to how the law courts function, which is outside of the remit and the direction of anybody in cabinet. As it relates to the police, I think the AG has heard you and therefore will ensure, and look, let's be frank, we have some cultural issues to overcome in this country. And the sensitivity that needs to be there when we're dealing with people who believe that something has happened that has caused them grave injustice needs to be felt by others too. And we cannot have a dismissive attitude, which means that we need to have training and we need to have new protocols in place, AG.
Yes,
okay?
I actually was...
And I want to invite your organization to formally write, because domestic violence is also not gender sensitive.
Exactly.
And therefore, we need to be able to have, and I invite your organization to write the Attorney General and to copy it to myself and also the Ministry of People Empowerment, Kirk's ministry, which also is where gender affairs and the other things are. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
like you mentioned, training. Training is the key.
Training is critical.
Yeah, lots of training. Thank you very much.
And understanding that people's feelings and perspectives matter, even if you don't think it's a problem. If I'm operating in a particular position, I'm duty bound to be able to engage and defend the public interest.
And we need to stop re-victimizing the victim. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Daisy, for bringing it to our attention. Yes, ma'am.
Good night. My name is Stephanie Clark. My name is Stephanie Clark, and I live in Briar Hall sometimes, and and Drexel sometimes. So for right now, I'm living in Drexel. My house is one of the houses that was destroyed, and I am located right now in Drexel. Since March, I was put in a house that the government supposed to provide.
What I've said to people on this individual thing, and not said it today alone, I've said it from the very first meeting. As it relates to individual circumstances, I am not encouraging anybody to put their circumstances on the road or in the media. Come to Ms. Cadogan right there and Minister Sutherland on this particular one, because we know that this is a relocation from one of the hurricanes.
Yes,
Is it
ma'am.
freak storm or the hurricane?
The freak storm, Thomas.
No, Thomas?
Yeah.
No, but that goes back. Anyhow, you come. That goes back even before we were the government. That goes back 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
10?
Yeah. It was damaged from Thomas. It was damaged now in the next storm.
All right, you come. You come there.
I have another problem.
No problem. Is a problem or is a concern you want to raise?
It's a concern.
Okay, good.
It's a concern with the police. We are asking to cooperate with the police. We are asking to do this and do that with the police. But the biggest criminals we have out is the police.
With all due respect, ma'am, you can say what you have to say without being offensive. I'm going to stop. You know, until somebody, if people are going to come to the microphone and be offensive to people, you can say all that you want to say without speaking in that tone, correct?
Okay.
Okay, so if we don't do it, I'm going to have to ask you to keep quiet on this particular issue. But if you're going to speak in a respectful way, and you can say what they did wrong, as the lady before just did, without referring to them in a disparaging way, okay? And maybe these town hall meetings are going to get us to elevate the quality of our discussion and how we speak with and to and about each other. Because that's half the difficulty we have in the country now. Please.
I have some matters that I have videos for, and nothing is doing about it. Nothing.
Let me be clear. You've made a complaint to the police and nothing has happened?
Nothing.
Okay. I want you to once again let us know what the complaint is. AG, the Police Complaints Authority is still functional? To the best of my knowledge. But in addition, that will also be relayed in order for us to be able to get an answer for you. Okay?
The AG was trying to get some answers since before COVID, and I'm still awaiting a letter from him.
Well, we're going to find out. Okay? So you
Thank
come.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ladies.
Hello, my name is Lynn Charlotte Nielsen, and I'm here on behalf of Be Their Voice movement. Barbados is beautiful. Barbados is home. But we need to do better. We have to treat our animals
what's
better.
What's your name again, sorry?
Lynn Charlotte Nielsen.
Okay, thank you.
We need to treat our animals better. Why shouldn't we? Why? Tell me why. They're there to protect us, to love us, to be our companions. Drowning on the beach, starving on chains, litters upon litters, that of which most end up as roadkill, in shelters, in gullies, or on the side of the road. Man, I know there's a fair of dogs on this island, but dogs aren't going anywhere. There are thousands in Barbados. And that's why I encourage everyone to face your fears. But how? Education, exposure, and stricter legislation. If you haven't noticed, I hate public speaking. But here I am, facing it. I want us to be the leader in stopping animal abuse in the Caribbean. Mia, how can we make this happen? What must we do and prove that we are in a dog crisis? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask Minister Ware to speak because, to the best of my knowledge, I would have asked him to engage with a number of you after letters were received by my office, and my office took action in order to make sure that Minister Ware, along with the Ministry of Health, seeks to update and upgrade the legislation. But I also want to contextualize expectations. The Attorney General, and one of these days I'm going to ask him to bring the list of legislation that we have before us. And we have a shortage of draftsmen, not just in Barbados, but across the entire Commonwealth. We've approached the Commonwealth Secretary General at least twice, AG? At least twice, to be able to find draftsmen for us. And one of the reasons why even us are pulling out our hair every day is because of the length of time it takes to get laws drafted, because we simply do not have enough draftsmen. So understand that I heard you and took careful note about public education, about stricter enforcement. And I am as horrified as you. I don't have dogs because my hours are too erratic. But my point is that I abhor the maltreatment of any living organism, whether it is people, animals, and the others know how I feel about plants and bush as well. You understand? So Indar has met, and I'll ask him to speak as well. Yeah. You wanted to say something else before he spoke? The other lady?
Yeah, my name is Debbie Funk, and I've been speaking with Mr. Indar Ware.
Yeah, what's your name, sorry?
Debbie, Debbie Funk.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we have been speaking about a situation where animal control had taken a dog from a very bad situation. Then they returned it to that same bad situation where previously there was 2 dogs taken from that home and were taken from there to Ocean Acres because they were so malnourished, in such a bad state. And I want to know why Minister Indar Ware went to the house of this, where the dog was kept 24/7 on a chain, and we gave him videos, photographs, everything he asked for, he got, and why that dog was taken, then taken back to the owners. And I had a call on Sunday afternoon from Minister Ware telling me that the dog had been poisoned. Now, we had a home for that dog. They had been leaving this dog 24/7 tied, with no food, no shelter, no water. Minister Ware went, he said, with the Minister of Health, Mr. Gooding, Edghill, whoever it is. He had went there and said that he saw that they had put a kennel. The problem was that the kennel was too far away from the dog because it was chained. Again, everybody wants to chain their dogs. Why? So he informed one of the officials to get the kennel moved closer to the dog. If that doesn't tell you that these owners don't care, yet Mr. Indar Ware left there and called me and told me that he was very happy that the dog was in good care. Just over a week, he calls me and tells me this dog has been poisoned. There was only a few of us who knew about this dog. And I asked him, was Dr. Mark Trotman going to be doing the necropsy? He told me yes. I asked if I would be able to see a copy of this to see how the dog was poisoned. I'm still waiting. And he told me that he would investigate, And I have not contacted him back, but tonight I feel that we need to have some answers here. Too many times.
I'm not sure that you're going to get answers tonight.
No.
Because quite frankly, I did not hire an Indar. I don't know that he is the technical officer dealing with the animals. And quite frankly, I'll let him speak, but I want to bring some balance to expectations. You just heard what I said about maltreatment. You heard what I said about legislation.
Yes.
But I want you all to recognize too that some of what is being done now has also to be balanced. For us to have a campaign waged against the country, that this is no more a tropical paradise, is a disproportionate action on the part of those who would like to have action taken by the government. I didn't wait. No. I'm speaking straight tonight too. I didn't wait or threaten anybody, and I'm not going to allow anybody to threaten the state either.
No,
so let
I
us be
appreciate
clear that you all need to take that off the table.
Can I just say
Hold on.
that was nothing to do with our group?
Let us be clear that we need to take that off the table, because then that is a form of terrorism against the state. Now, I'm sure that's not what you meant.
No, and that was nothing to do with the groups that we're involved in.
And
that
therefore,
came from.
right, but regrettably, what I came here and received this afternoon is everything as one document.
Right.
And as Prime Minister of Barbados, I cannot agree that however much we may disagree on domestic issues, however much we may want to ask people to do better, that it cannot be that two wrongs make a right.
No.
Can we agree to that?
We can. Yes,
right.
absolutely.
In there, Minister, would you like to speak, please?
One last question. Can I ask who we do go to deal with animal
that is exactly
abuse?
the ministry deals with it, but the minister isn't the person who is responsible for picking up the dog or who is responsible for checking on the dog. The minister deals with policy.
So who does then? Who does deal with that?
He's going to speak to you, ma'am. He's going to speak to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Good night, everyone. First of all, let me state that the consultation that I had with the stakeholders who have expressed interest in animal welfare and animal care in Barbados took place about 3 weeks ago. We gave the assurance then that there must be harmonization between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health. The Animal Control Unit falls under the Ministry of Health. I have intervened on the instructions of the Prime Minister to bring some balance to this situation, and we have all agreed at that meeting that we will consult and that we will make sure we bring about change to suit many of the things that were raised. But I also drew to the attention of everyone sitting at that meeting that we live within a Barbadian culture where you have very poor people who love animals and want to keep their pets. Many of them don't have guard walls nor fencing, so they have to keep the dogs on a leash. The reality of it is that I cannot deprive the poor woman who is crying because she loves her pet, but she does not have fencing. She does not have a place to keep the dog other than by a kennel. The reality of it is this is Barbados. People love their pets, but they cannot afford to be able to accommodate them as others may wish. And the question that I put before the stakeholders was, if in truth and in fact we are going to go forward collectively, what solutions can you offer to those people who want to keep a pet but don't have the financial resources, so you don't like the condition under which you are seeing the pet being kept? How do we work together to provide the support to those people? Barbadians love dogs. All right? So and when I went to deal with this situation, and Debbie, you know I kept you in the loop, just as you kept me in the loop. We looked at it. I was satisfied that if the lady came out to me crying, "Minister, please don't take my pet. Please don't take my pet." She came out crying. When I looked at the animal jumped up all over this lady. The animal didn't do the same for me, nor the inspectors from the Ministry of Health. So there's clearly a deep relationship between the lady and the animal. The separation that would have been needed is if I had found that dog in any way in distress. I stood up there for well over an hour. The dog was not crying. The dog was not whelping. The dog lives in St. George South. The family is not a wealthy family. We agreed that the health inspectors will go around and visit the dog on a weekly basis. The week that they went to visit the dog, they come back and reported to me that somebody poisoned the dog. A woman crying her heart out will not do a thing like that. So coincidentally, because I didn't take up this dog, coincidentally, because we did not lock the cage, put the dog away from the owner, we have some mysterious way in which I now have to carry out a full investigation. And I promised Debbie that a full investigation would be carried out. And if we can find out what took place there, then we are going to deal it with the full force of the law that is available to us. And that is what is going to be done.
Let me help, Minister. Let me help, ma'am, both of you. I think that we are at a stage, a society is in growing pains. A society is in growing pains. It's not everything that we want to do we can do as well as we can. But the reality is that you're also dealing with cultural differences, and you're also dealing with assumptions that people are making that don't necessarily take into account other realities. Indar's point about people who don't live with a fence is a valid point, okay? By the same token, there are some people who have a lot of land and the dogs can run freely. I would like to think that, like in a person who lives in an apartment, if a dog is being, chained, that at some point during the day, and you and I don't know when the owner is going to do that, they will go and walk the dog and make sure that the dog gets some exercise. I don't want us to assume about people, because it's going to be a form of profiling that is going to get us into trouble. Let us work together. We've agreed that we are going to look at the legislation and update it. We've agreed that we will continue to do a public education program, and Minister Ware has been the one representing this to me. Okay? So that I think that what we can do is to do that. But what we can't do is have people saying that they are going to stop Barbadians from working by putting a program internationally against the country because people feel that we are not treating animals properly. Now, murder takes place in every society. But it doesn't mean that because a murder has taken place in Barbados that this is not a country for people to visit. Because the reality is that it's all relative still. So I'm asking you all, this is not a country where you don't know how to find the Prime Minister and ministers. This is a country where you wrote me and we took action. Roy, you wrote to them on my behalf too, didn't you? This is a country where the Prime Minister asked the minister to meet with you. This is a country where when they had the march, Minister, I asked you to go up to the march too, and the minister missed meetings at Parliament in order to attend the march. So that there is no reason for us to be hotting up the place. So I really do believe that. And if we can work together, the objective is for us to bring a level of care and a sense of worth to every living organism. And I believe that what happened with the dog that was drowned was horrific and horrible. And the police, they took action on that, haven't they? And the person has been charged. And they now, having been charged, are entitled to due process. So I'm not going to even comment on it. But I want the message to go out, because this is about the third meeting that people have come to raising these issues. And on each occasion, I have given you the commitment, and in fact, you have seen action. Let us work together to start to change the attitude of people who may not yet have seen the light. But I'm satisfied that the majority of Barbadians are already where you want them to be. That's the truth. Okay? Thank you.
And one more thing, guys. Right? It's not that chains are bad. It's just if the dog is on a chain, tell it you love it. Give it water, food. Honestly, you stoop sing, but it's true. You want it to protect you, love it. Give it some love. But anyway.
Agreed.
And if you
and
can't-
part of the public education program
Exactly.
will be all of that.
Exactly,
Okay?
yeah. And if you can't feed your dog, please reach out to me. Please. We're here to help you. Thank you.
And I think that's it. And I want to thank you for being there to help with those who are abandoned. Yes, ma'am.
Good night, Prime Minister, ministers. Good night, Prime Minister, ministers. Good night.
One meeting, please.
Okay, my name is Lisa Miller Cumberbatch. My father, his name was Leroy Miller. I believe my father exemplified the Barbadian dream. He worked very hard, he was successful, and he helped a lot of Barbadian families. In the 1960s, he bought a plantation, he bought land. And for 50 years, our family, we have been paying taxes and taking care of the land, clearing it and so forth. Prime Minister, I know that you would know of this case, but we were not able to speak. Coming up, you'll understand. So,
I genuinely don't know.
Okay,
But if you
yes.
feel I should know and it's an individual matter, I'm going to ask you once
No,
again.
it's okay because
No,
I came here for advice from all of you.
Right,
so.
but what I'm saying is that I'm not taking individual matters on mic. I will deal with them. That's why I have others to deal with it. So if it is a broad issue we're talking about,
It's broad. It's broad and it's personal.
Madam, come.
Well,
come,
it is.
come. Trust me. You come, and we're going to deal with it. And I hope when I finish dealing with it, you'll tell the country that we've dealt with it. So come, you come. I don't believe in asking people to identify their issues out here. Roy, just go and deal with it for me, please. Or Alex. Alex, take the information. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Evening, Madam Prime Minister, and to the panel, and everybody else from Christchurch in the audience. I come to speak to you tonight on the matter of sport. More specifically, Adam.
What's your name?
Adam Brown. I'm speaking to you in the capacity tonight as chairman of Wanderers Club, just down the road from Mr. Dudugid. Some matters are unique. A few matters are unique to us specifically, but there's some that are on the broader scale across the island. Almost all the clubs in the country right now are in shambles due to a few things, basically the economic climate and the neglect of the institution that governs the sport. Right? I leave that right there. We are all aware of how sports are used both for monetary gain and balanced with community-based engagement. We've seen leaders across the world heavily invest in sport from a private level, but also from a governmental level. Most notably, in my mind, in South Africa, where Nelson Mandela united a broken country through rugby and cricket. So it's from this vantage point I wanted to address the panel tonight and make my case for Barbados. Clubs right now are heavily dependent on membership subscription. However, with the ever-increasing cost of running a progressive cricket program in a sport that is already overly expensive, keeping the standard or achieving the standard that we want is basically out of reach from a financial aspect. I believe there's a couple of things that could help mitigate a catastrophic disaster in the coming year or years, and I ask your indulgence. Number one, on several occasions, this is specific to us, we've applied to the planning department on several occasions to put signage on the exterior wall, which are spots in between the columns to allow us to generate revenue through advertising, both on board or the sheet metal, and to have the separate application has been made for painting of what you would consider to be a mural where signs will be painted flat. On both applications, on numerous occasions, have been denied. Yet, the entire South Coast, from as far down as Boatyard,
When last you applied? Because I have never seen, but I'll check on it. Will
pre-COVID, so I believe 2019.
So can we check? That wouldn't come to the minister. That's dealt with at the level of the planning department. But I suspect what is likely to happen is that we may have to give them a policy directive that is broader. So I thank you for raising it with us.
No problem.
Thank you.
I thought it was something
But-
specific to the area,
No.
while the rest of the South
No.
Coast, you know, is
No,
flooded
no.
with the same.
No. And
thing.
in fact, I suspect that a lot of the ones that you claim to be flooding are doing so without lawful authority.
I am not
as
here
well.
to judge.
So, no, I tell you, if you can recall, because in order to do a lot of these things, you really do need planning permission. But that's part and parcel of an archaic thing, and William, we need to look to review it, while at the same time not making Barbados look like a advertising ghetto. Go ahead.
Okay, so the second one. While sporting institutions are listed as non-profit organizations, we're still required to pay commercial rates for both water, electricity, and land tax. I believe that a waiver, I'm speaking on behalf of cricket clubs in Barbados, I believe personally the community-based engagement advantage, and I see Corey Lane here tonight, and I'm a fan of the Brass Tacks program. The youth is the future of this country. And if these institutions are burdened with these particular costs, then I believe, you know, the engagement.
I hear you loud and clear, but I will simply say to you that I have the same request coming from about 20 other corners.
Well,
so at some point, somebody has to pay the bills, but we will listen, review, and where possible, we will ease. But I want you to know that when given the question as to what we did in 2019 and how we should address some of these issues, what did we do, Ryan? That we decided to give the money back to people in their pockets. And people who previously would not get a reverse tax credit, who earned between $1,500 and $2,500 a month, we decided to give them the reverse tax credit. And when it came to income taxes, people who earn between $2,000 a month, $25,000 a year, and just under $3,000 a month, we decided to give them a compensatory income credit, which is so long as the government can afford it every year, whatever you pay in taxes, we give back to you. And we've done it in 2020, we've done it in 2021, and we're doing it in 2022. And those who earn above $35,000, every single person had a cut in income tax rates to put more money in their pocket. So I say that to you to say that if you take from here, you got to do what? Give back there. So that the country has to appreciate. And very often people forget or people choose not to remember that we have chosen to put more money in people's pockets directly in that way. Mercifully, it was done months before COVID. Can you imagine if people face COVID and the cost of living without the tax benefits that we put in there? Now, I wish we were a rich country. I could say, let it be done. But I can't tell you, let it be done. But what I can tell you is that we're hearing you, and wherever possible, and once we can do the ease, and it may not be a full waiver, it may be hotels in this country get a 50% waiver on land tax. In some instances, I think pensioners get a 50% waiver too on land tax, right? So I hear you.
Right.
But I just want to moderate expectations Because what these sessions are also to do is to explain and to educate.
No problem.
Continue,
And
sir. And we certainly want more youngsters and more young people. That's what Corey and I have been talking about, playing and involved in sports. That's why the government has agreed also to light 85 grounds and hard courts. And that is why we're also trying to create a mini stadium in each parish so that people can, in that mini stadium that has bleachers and fencing, that people can have tournaments or activities where people will pay a $5 or $10 to come in.
Right.
Continue,
So
sir.
where can I reach out for this conversation on this particular issue to continue?
Look, gentleman next to
Okay.
me here on the right. You
No
understand?
problem.
Because
Yeah.
he will help process all of the things that come in, and we get them from every sector.
Right.
So don't feel no way.
No problem.
Still send them. They go in the mix. We quantify it. We look and see what we can afford, what we can't, and we may want to do something and may have to do it over a period of time. And let me give you an example. We offered to pay, and we say we want to pay $3,000 to every homeowner. That may happen not now, but immediately. Not immediately, but a year, 18 months. When we wrote that in the manifesto, Mr. Putin had not gone in to Ukraine. You understand what I'm telling you?
Understand.
And the rate at which things are degenerating globally is at regrettably too fast a pace. Similarly, after Mr. Putin went in, 6 months later, what has happened? Prime Minister Truss came with a budget that spooked the entire global markets so that the things that we can do and would otherwise do. Come through, ma'am. You, as a former principal, come and sit down to the front. You have half owned this school. You train enough people in this school, and everybody will understand that when your turn comes, a mic will be brought to you. Fair is fair. Thank you. So what I'm trying to explain to the public is that in this year alone, 2 events have happened since we went to the people that will cause us grave, grave concern, and for us to be able to watch and balance things. And those 2 events, neither of us contemplated at the end of January. The war in Ukraine and the consequential impact of it on fuel, on food, and on financing costs. And then, of course, the actions by Prime Minister Truss, which then led to more jittery behavior it led to far more than more jittery behavior. It led to the entire administration that she had imploding to the point where you have a new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom sworn in yesterday. So bear with us. My heart is where your heart is, but I also have to have capacity, not heart. Okay?
No problem. With these concerns, I would like to ask a question on the basis of grant funding or the access to low interest loans. Now I know we're accessing them for the country as a whole, but I hear tonight speaking on a particular entity of the country that needs access to one or both of those 2 categories to enable us to finance capital works projects which we can't otherwise do. And I speak to that against the backdrop.
I think we're going to have to think outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
When last y'all put on a T10 tournament at night? COVID look up everything.
We would like to be a beneficiary of the lighting program as well.
It may well be that we can find ways to make clubs be able to access some of the grounds because we're mainly doing public grounds.
Correct.
Okay? But come and sit down with the minister and let us see how you're going to think outside the box, because one of the things that we want is more youngsters involved in structured clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Put something on the table, let us see how it can work. In that area in which Wanderers exist, you have how many districts? Darrell's Road, you have St. Matthias, Harts Gap, Britain's Hill. You understand what I'm saying? put something in a structured way that we can work with that is a win-win, and you never know what can happen. Okay?
No problem. Okay.
You say your name is Adam, right?
Brown, yeah.
So Adam was the first in many things.
Now, this particular point is unique to Wonders, given that we're on the fringes of the Garrison Historic Site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And given our geographical location and our club's ancient history, going back 145 years, second oldest club in the Caribbean, is it possible that we can facilitate or tap into, and how do we go about it, with the BTMI, so that when those tours are happening around the corner, that we can benefit from that as well? And
I think, look, put your head down, put your ideas down. As I just said, when last you had a T10 tournament at night, you understand? There are things that can be done in order to attract visitors. Barbados needs more product. So I'm sure that the BTMI and the other matters, Minister Strawn, more than happy to meet with you. In fact, I want to thank you for coming out, because there are not many people who would have come in this structured way and put formal things on the table, but they might have stand outside and say, man, the government will help me, man, the government ain't doing this, man, the government. So I want to tell you, come to the top of the class, and through Minister Strawn, make sure, I'm not sure that Minister Godinejul is here tonight, is he? And he is now, today was his first day as Minister of Tourism, but I'm sure that Minister Strong can set up a meeting in the next few weeks with him, for you, with the BTMI.
All right. Thanks.
Power to you, Skipper. Thank you.
Good night.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Melville Leif, and I live in Silver Hill Landing Scheme. I have an issue with a hedge that is next door to me, and it's on the road. It's having a problem with the...
No problem. I got enough people to deal with individual problems. So you come, because it's to do with the hedge next to you, right?
I have other
So
things
go to
too.
the next one. We can deal with the hedge
Good.
separately.
Yeah, 'cause
But individual issues, I got a row of people that can help with the individual issues.
The next one now is an abandoned house at the back, and a lot of bush and things growing in it. Parrots going in it is a fire hazard.
That's all right. I got you. I take the abandoned house as a district problem. No
Right,
problem.
and I need like the wall. They don't have a top, and the walls cracking.
Luckily
So,
for you, your minister is the minister. Your MP is the minister.
He spoke to me. He went and he see about things for me.
He will know how to deal with these issues.
Yeah,
Luckily for you.
He used to get that to me. He do things for me already. I must say, right? He know about the problem, but the problem is a fire
So
hazard.
he do for you already.
Yeah.
That's
What?
good.
Mr. Prime Minister, the last problem, transport. We have a bus running near the Southern Circle.
Use the mic. Use the mic.
We have a bus running near the Southern Circle, right? And this is over about 6 weeks since it running. It is a bus that helps people coming from St. Patrick's. You come down all through Gall Hill, Silver Hill, all the way down, and all the elderly people. If people going to Sheraton, if you're going to Elcourt Clinic, people...
So it's not functioning now?
No, people that working
Transport Board, is Ms. Holder here?
people that working at the Ministry of Agriculture. Then you have some women working at Graham Hall.
You ain't
and
got to
they're-
speak twice there. We got to find out what happening with it.
Oh.
Ms. Holder, Southern Circle, what's the position?
Use
the mic. Use the mic.
Disappear.
Good night, everyone. The issue with the Southern Circle has been brought to our attention, and it will be reinstated.
I will love that. I want to see a 7, 8, 9, 3, 4, and 5.
You will not see all of those, but I am working on it.
Thank you. So,
You
Mr.
see how
Prime
things
Minister,
can
I
get
can
done?
come now? I can-
Come back here. Ms. Waith, you see how easy things can get done? Thank you. Oh, Suzanne, sorry, thank you very much, ma'am. Can somebody, Wilfred, carry a mic for Ms. King, please?
Good night.
My name is Suzanne King. Prime Minister, I heard you make mention of the abandoned houses, and it's been mentioned here. The area that I live in, I am now an elder, and there's one right in front of me that I am so afraid even to go and come in at night because it is covered in bush. And this is all along that. My representative knows we have seen it.
Rough district?
It's Elam Park. So,
Thank you. No
and
problem.
it is really bad in there and along that road. Not only the one in front of me. I've had some help
Point
from the
taken.
constituency office, but it is not their responsibility. The people who own it apparently are in America. Two of them might be dead by now. Maybe they were there a long time, and we need to find the deeds and either take. It really is a hazard. There's also a leak. I don't know if it's MTW to look at it or something under one of the houses around the corner. Every time it rains, it floods in that corner there, which means the water settles and it would be mosquitoes, whatever else could be a problem. So we need someone to come and have a look at it and so on.
Not a problem.
Right. The second thing is a national issue. I heard you ask a question. I listened to your speech very carefully and listened to it twice. Why argument between two young men about a girl would end up with a life, and you said which God deserved it. I am very, very concerned about what is happening with our young men because I grew up in a society and grew up in a school, this very school here, where a lady up there called Enid Lynch made sure that we were all looked after. None to be said omnibus, whether you were rich, you were poor, you were bright or not. What needs to happen is, I think we have education reform on the table. I am convinced that it is not necessarily the test that is the problem. I am not a fan of common entrance, but we're going to have some kind of test to place the children for instruction. I think what needs to happen, I know the money is limited. You have done wonders with what you had so far, but we need the guidance counselors and we need social workers in the system to save the children at risk. When we celebrate the scholarship winners, I celebrate with them. But what about the little boy, the little girl whose mother working at night and there's nobody to help them with the homework? We have community centers that are shut down. I work on the Alambe, and those community centers used to have all kinds of things happening. There should be some after-school program. You also mentioned that. Not only would they get guidance, we are good with the robotics and all of that. I worked in America, and I had a speech made to us one time, and the guy said, all of this is good, but it's the teacher before the class that makes the difference. And we can talk to parents. Got some parents shouldn't have children. You only got the biology, you ain't got the science. You know what I mean? That's a fact. You can talk to parents how long. Some of them don't know any better. I met a lot of them like that. We have to provide a safety net. Also, I would wish that the schools have one vision. And when I say that, we have sections of the school. We have the Board of Management, you have the PTA, and I want to see these things revived and really working to mentor the children. It's not about buying a piece of equipment. That is good. But we have old scholars who have done extremely well. Nobody's name shall be called here, but one is sitting next to you. We want some of them to come back and mentor the children. We want them to come back and spend an hour.
And she mentored 7,000.
Yeah, I know she mentored 7,000. She mentored more than 7,000 before that. But I'm saying we have so many. They're reaching out to me to revive the Old Scholars Association, and I'm going to try to do that. But it makes sometimes more difference to spend 2 and 3 hours with a little child that don't have anybody to tell them it ain't right to curse, it ain't right to fight, rather than giving
and that you love them.
Yeah, and that you love them. That is what I found when I went to a school which I had to turn around. That it makes more difference. We need to make a synergy of all the stakeholders, and I would like them to come together.
I'd like to invite Minister Griffith to speak because he can tell you about some of the things that they're working on in youth affairs. I'd like to ask Sante, in fairness, Kay is here as well, but I think that the social workers, Sante, you can update because I know that I did that while you were minister with the guidance counselor, so that things have been done. But finally, I'd like to ask the Minister of Information to have a program because there's need for more Barbadians to speak on television and radio and social media to Barbadians so that people understand the things that matter. We make assumptions about what people know and what people don't know. And parental education is critical in this country. When I was Minister of Education, I put money every year in Parados. Not because they asked, but because we needed to. And we need to use the social media and the traditional media in order to tell the things, and so that people hear it often enough and they say, oh shoot, you understand? And there's some people who will never say, I love you, because they feel I love you is a weakness. When in truth and in fact, as we heard, even the animals need I love you, far less human beings. So I really, really want to thank you for speaking out, but to encourage you that persons like yourselves and others who have helped build this society and others who are still building this society need to be able to speak out and to allow us to be able, because I feel that we can wrestle back down the problem. And I make the last point on this, as I say all the time, when you're dead, you're dead. They're not coming back. So that to begin with, the first thing we have to do is to get people to value life. Because if they value life, then they're not going there. Even if there's a quarrel, an argument, whatever, they're going to know not to go to that level where they risk. And that's why the definition of murder is not only having an intention to kill, but being reckless as to whether your actions lead to death or not. Not true, AG? Minister Griffith.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Good night, everybody. Ma'am, I want to address some of the concerns that you raised and to let you know that the Ministry of Youth is indeed working on a number of the issues that you raised. For example, I spoke to Minister McConney, and we're looking to roll out a national program at primary school level called Moving On. This program will seek to provide those class 4 students immediately after the 11 plus, an opportunity to engage with professionals who will deliver life skills. So when they hit secondary school, they're in a better position to manage some of the challenges that will happen there. You mentioned mentorship. Next year, January, the ministry will be rolling out a national mentorship program, and I hope that we can use some of the persons that you will identify to come on board with those persons who will be involved in the process. We're also looking to put in place a national hotline, because we are aware that mental health is a major issue in relation to our youngsters. So we're providing an opportunity for them to call the ministry, and this will be paired with the mentorship program so that persons can provide a sounding board for those youngsters who are having difficulties. Recently, we would have instituted the block committee that is seeking to go on every single block across the island to reintegrate those youngsters who lime on the blocks across this country, to make sure that programs are in place. We're also involved in a program with the prison system where we're looking to reintegrate those youngsters who are in prison within our age cohort back into mainstream society by getting involved in a constructive, whatever program they want. But not only the program, but we are putting life skills as well in place to match or to make sure that those particular youngsters are involved in something that they can walk strong going forward. So before I go, I just want to address something that Adam would have mentioned as well. And I have been pushing self-help to the national federations, and he's talking about wonders. It is amazing, when I was in basketball, a single raffle can raise in excess of $40,000. So I'm suggesting that clubs similar to Wonders can engage in that. Prime Minister and the government is pushing the photovoltaic. And this is something that can be put on the roofs at Wonders to help offset the cost of those particular areas that he identified are problematic. But rest assured that this is a good time to be a young person in this island because of the initiatives and projects that are coming on stream. I thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Sandhya?
I think I should say good night, ma'am, and good night to all of you. She was my history teacher here at Foundation, so, and a good job she did as well. Just to say that when I was minister, and certainly through the assistance of the Prime Minister, we would have introduced into the schools, I think it was 7 safety officers for the first time. Those persons are already installed in the system. I think there were 6 at the time that had been recruited. At the time, there was 1 that was left that just had to come in, and I suspect that that person has come in. We also created posts for the guidance counselors. And we changed the name really to a school counselor because we recognized that the traditional role of the guidance counselor really had to change. The person that we needed to have more experience in both the social work, but also in some cases psychology, to be able to work with the young people in the schools. And the reason for that is that we saw that there were a lot of children, as you did, ma'am, that you highlighted, that were experiencing a number of challenges in the home environment. And it required a different approach. We couldn't just do the same things as before, where you just had a guidance counselor's office and you go there to learn about, what career skills you were going to pick up later. There were a lot of children that were presenting with a number of mental challenges. There were both the psychological and the social challenges. And so we felt that we had to take a different approach. Now, the truth of the matter is, I think we would have liked to do more in terms of the number of resource persons that are needed. And truth be told, that's where the social services are in terms of the reform, is, I think, going to help significantly, because the attempt to decentralize a number of the social services into the communities is also going to help to be able to target some of the challenges there at the community level. But we felt that there was a significant need to put them into our schools and to work with those social workers and psychologists directly with the students as well.
Says I agree with that, but there are organizations that are voluntary, that don't cost anything, that there are people there. I was part of a committee that was setting up a program right here at Foundation that was going to be free. In other words, we were setting it up with the PTA, and it fell through the cracks. You see, you have to have a vision to understand. It has to be a team. The Prime Minister knows how teams work and how we can win with a team. But when you have some people who can't see beyond the nose, you have a problem.
That is where I want you all to go and speak, because I think we need to encourage people to give back time. And
Yes,
Minister Humphrey is going to also speak to the country in a few weeks' time about how we work, because the most important statistic is if 1 out of every 5 is below the poverty line, then it means 4 out of every 5 is above the poverty line. And this country can do what it has to do by working together. So Santi would have told you about the first 7. One of the things we said is that, look, we're in the middle of a difficult financial situation. Start with these 7. We'll come again with the next 5, 6, 7. And we will keep going until we get all of the secondary schools covered, which is 21, as you know. So we're going to continue on that path and continue to do it. But as Charles said, there are some programs that we need in terms of mentorship. I came across also, and I shared with the parliamentary party, the notion of council of guardians that we have at different levels in parishes, where people literally give of their time. Are you prepared to give 10, 20, 30 hours a month in order to be able to make sure that we can lift the opportunities and create the groups, the old scholars, the sport groups, the community groups? Because let's take the same cricket. When men used to go to cricket clubs and belong to cricket clubs as a more religious form of action all the time, then they were able to help guide young boys who might not have had home at them, somebody to speak to. So we have to be able to literally step back up to the plate and give of our time. You know, there's a wonderful African concept called Ubuntu, which simply means I am because
you are.
We are. Unless we recognize that we only exist in this country because all of us are allowed to exist, then we're not going to do the things that are necessary to preserve the type of life and the quality of life that we have. So I'd like to urge you to work with the others, and I'd like to urge the individuals here to reach out to you. You have a body of information. You and all of the other retired head teachers, retired teachers in this country have a hell of a role that you can still play in terms of helping us uplift. And then ordinary citizens too. Ordinary retired school meal workers. Ordinary retired people who work as janitors in school. Because more often than not, the janitors and the school meal
They look
workers
after
were
the-
social workers in this country.
They look after the
And they're
children,
the
they
ones
still
that
do.
pick up the difference in behavior.
That's
They're the
right.
ones that can tell you, watch that child from early.
Mm-hmm.
They know exactly what, because more often than not, the child is more likely to be well behaved in the classroom with the teacher, but to be themselves outside when the janitor, the groundsman, or the school meals worker watching them. Okay? So thank you, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Another mic? Just pass up another mic. Somebody just go up and pass a mic to the lady. Oh, but I don't think the lady knew that somebody was before her. Go ahead, sir. Apparently there's somebody who couldn't come, who couldn't walk. Go ahead.
Good night. My name is Rommel Griffith, and I'm having an ongoing problem, with the hospital and surgery. Right now.
And this relates to you personally?
Well, yeah.
Okay, you hold tight, sit down. Alex, go to him, please. Okay? Thank you. Come for this mic and pass to the other lady, please.
Yeah, that one is generally about transplant surgeries.
Good evening. Good evening.
I was just trying to make sure that somebody was speaking to the young man. Go ahead, ma'am.
My name is Johanna Gamblin, and I am not here.
Joanna?
Gamblin.
Gamblin, sorry.
And I am not here. I'd like to reassure Minister Ware to speak on behalf of the animals. I am not here to speak on behalf of the animals. On Saturday, the 15th of October, there was a leaking pipe at the bottom of my gap, which was dug up and fixed. I had
Where's the district, sorry?
Green Garden, Silver Sands. Green Garden, Silver Sands. I had no water that afternoon. Everyone else in the neighborhood got theirs back. When I looked in the hole, my connection had not been replaced. I called the BWA and someone came and reattached my connection, so I got water. The hole was not filled in that day. It was supposed to be done on Monday the 17th. On Friday the 21st of October, a large container truck came to collect a container on the land opposite to my house. The driver had difficulty getting the truck up the gap due to the hole, and in the process of so doing, a large chunk of asphalt fell into the hole and dislodged my connection. The hole filled with water. I called the BWA at 9:30 a.m. and 2:45 p.m. At 5:23 p.m., I got a call on my cell, presumably from one of the crew, who said he would visit, but he didn't. At 11:40 p.m., I called the BWIA, and the receptionist said he would report it again with the supervisor. On Saturday, the 22nd of October, I tried calling the BWIA at 434-4292 at least 4 times, and the answering machine said they were unable to take my call. I went 33 hours without service and only got it back at 6 p.m. on Saturday because one of the BWA guys, whose cell number was given to me by a neighbor and who was not on duty, called one of the trucks. My first question is, what is the contact number for reporting bursts on weekends, as the 434 number was not answered at all last Saturday? And my second question is, when will the hole be filled, as every heavy vehicle is a hazard to my connection?
Sorry. The last question was, when will the what?
The hole be filled.
No problem. I think that the DPM has heard you, and the broader issue is not only Silver Sands. The broader issue is reinstatement. Reinstatement. It is too simple. DPM, you want to speak?
Ma'am, as PM said, this is a problem that we're getting across the country. We meet every Friday with the various utilities, and BWA obviously falls under my ministry as well. So we meet with the Light and Power, we meet with everybody to try to address a number of these roads where there has been roadworks done. And as a consequence, obviously, we try to highlight it so that we can go back in to address it. It does help, yes, when the public communicates the issues to us so that the relevant parties can respond. But the truth is, sometimes there are some that are missed. I said to PM just now, sometimes I feel like I am the emergency hotline for the Barbados Water Authority, because usually persons reach out to me in order to be able to solve the problem. And I've told the staff that we have to be able to respond more quickly to a lot of the concerns to address it. So I give you the assurance that I will raise this issue at the next meeting, and hopefully we can try to address the reinstatement.
So is there a number to call on a weekend?
I will take your information after.
I have a report number
so that I can
give
follow
you.
up on it. Right.
My second concern.
And on the reinstatement, we'll deal with that as soon as possible.
My second concern is noise nuisance reports to Oistings Police Station. When called, particularly on weekends, the usual answer is that the receptionist does not know whether a noise permit has been granted to the establishment in question. My suggestion is the front desk or receptionist be given a daily list of such permits and the times allowed.
With respect to the AG?
That's not unreasonable, Prime Minister. I'm sure that we can find a way of making that kind of information available publicly, not just in her area, but across the island.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Rosalind Carrington Watton. Prime Minister, first I wish to thank you for addressing the issue of the electrical situation with the housing units. And that's all I will say on that. Second is another housing issue in relation to the rent to own, turnover of the units, whatever you call it. What's the latest with that? Has it been discontinued? Is it still supposed to happen? Because I'm hearing that some persons have gotten conveyances and others have not. I'm not sure what the situation is.
Yeah.
If
No,
you could.
in some instances there were difficulties because of the party wall and different things, correct, AG? And what we've said is that we will try to have a different legislative approach that I asked the Ministry of Housing to pursue. So once again, that's part and parcel of the backlog with respect to the legislative drafting. But basically we are going to have by law to create the perfect title that you actually get now with a registrar's conveyance. And we're going to have to do it by law. Okay? But once again, this was a case, a policy was announced in 2008 by the last government, and they had no idea as to how they would make it happen. And they knew that there were difficulties because we knew in 2007 that there were difficulties then when we first tried to address it ourselves. Okay? And then it was compounded by ad hoc development in each area because some people would belong and some people didn't belong, and it's madness and complexity. So we've agreed that we will try to deal with it by way of resolution, resolve it by way of legislation, and that is where it is at now. And I would imagine that, as I said, once the AG can get the additional assistance, if not, it will take a little longer than even I would like. So hold tight, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not finished. On that issue, in relation to getting assistance for the AG, we have hundreds, maybe thousands of justices of the peace that literally just sign documents for persons. Is there a way, or has it been considered, that you could put some of those persons to better use or more use to assist the government with some of the not so complex issues?
As Justice of the Peace?
Yes.
What we think we can do, people who are willing to be trained in mediation and conciliation are people who we can bring to the table to help deal with a lot of these backlogs, not for serious cases, obviously,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of minor offenses that still are before the court. There are a lot of also petty, what they used to call petty claims before, which simply means below a certain amount. And those are the things that we're trying to think outside of the box to see how we can amplify the numbers of persons who are brought to resolve conflict in this country. One of the things that we also see in other countries, and ironically, is in those countries that have indigenous populations, where they look and find a non-adversarial way to be able to resolve conflict, where everybody comes, you put your side, and a group of people in the community say, okay, but it means that both sides have to agree to submit to the outcome. The beauty of a court is that it doesn't matter whether you submit or not, the judgment is the law.
Yeah.
But in voluntary mediation and conciliation, both sides have to agree to a thing. So this is part of an evolving process. You know, when I say that this country lost a decade, I don't say so lightly, because a lot of the things that we should be doing and could be doing all like now, if at the end of the day, we left government in 2008, January. What was the GDP then when we left government? Not about near 9 billion? And I come back in government, and it was more or less at the same thing after 10, 12 years. Bottom line is, with COVID, it went back down. The governor of the central bank, speaking this week, isn't he? You will find out from him that at the end of this year, we inherited the government at 9 billion, and even with COVID, nominally, we're going to be up to 11 point something by the end of March. All I'm saying is that nothing happened. In fact, far from something happening, the country went so. And you must feel it in certain ways. We feel it with the young men and young girls, young boys and girls who left school and who, instead of getting a job, have sat down for 7 and 8 years. And all of a sudden, we want them to develop a culture of going to sleep and getting up early in the morning and getting ready for work. If you don't do that and you don't know it, it doesn't come to you like that. Similarly, a lot of the other things that we're talking about could not command attention, because if all the government was doing was paying debt and paying salaries, what else it got left back to do anything? Nothing. So I'm asking the country, look, we are climbing back up a hill. We're going faster than I thought in some instances. COVID came, but we're picking back up a speed again. Similarly, let's also be real. Barbadians have a view about public health that is perhaps stronger than anyone else in the region. We provided the region with the greatest number of public health specialists. But what does it mean? When other countries were prepared to dash away the protocols and dash away the mask and dash away testing at the airport, Beijing said what? No. And we listened and we draw breaks. But what does it mean? It means then that you're not earning back as quickly as others may earn. Now we're back there again, so it just means that we're going to run faster than anybody else now. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
That's who we are. And we have, therefore, to accommodate it and deal with it. So leave it with us, and let us see what we can do. But thank you for sharing again. Okay?
All right, one other issue. I'm acting as proxy for one of my neighbors. The question has arisen with the ASH program, the cleanup crews, in terms of employment. They're unable to get job letters. They're still not being paid through the bank. They can't get credit anywhere because...
Remember, the ASH program is not a permanent program. So you can't get a job letter for something that's not permanent. And the mere fact that it's called the ASH program and the ASH finished 14 months ago tells you what? And I addressed this in St. Philip. Okay. What we're doing is that we're trying to be thing to everyone. Up to today, William, up to today, we discussed it in terms of retraining people, because that's why we have Construction Gateway. Because Barbados may well face a situation by the middle of next year, if not sooner, where we don't have enough skilled labor. And the government has, in addition to helping them stay on for now, has said, come and get training. And we've been training people. Construction Gateway started how long ago? 4 months ago? 4 or 5 months ago. So I'm appealing to people. The senior minister brought certain things to my attention today. And I'm appealing to people. Some of them will go into housing construction, working for other people. Some of them will go into agriculture. Minister Ware has lots and training for those who want to go. Some will go into landscape. Some will go into the private sector because we have a number of construction projects started. Right here in Christchurch, Cafe Indigo, Hotel Indigo, I did the groundbreaking for. We have at least about 3 or 4 others starting within the next few months. So that the work is going to be there. And all we've been trying to do is to carry as many people because we understand what COVID did to the country. But we have also said from day one that this is not permanent because the government cannot afford to carry it as a permanent program, but we have opportunities for you that you can make a living and a trade from. Housing is a huge one. And the demand for housing is such that we're already seeing it multiply. And in fact, that's what I did the tour this morning on. Agriculture, huge again, because we want to do agro-processing and to be able to export. And the other things that I mentioned with you, the landscaping and then the genuine, not housing construction, but other construction. And then I've also indicated to Santia that she needs to hold back some, because remember I talked about buying additional equipment to do what? The tenantry roads, where people got to come out with 2 bags when the rain falling, with 2 pairs of shoes, sorry, 1 in a bag and 1 on the foot. And then in some instances, people stumping the toe because the road ain't even, etc. So we've said, look, we'll keep back some of them to work with the equipment, Mr. Tudor, and make sure that when the end of the year comes, we can do at least 200 of those tenantry roads as well. So work with us, we can get there, but it's not permanent. I ain't fooling you. I ain't coming to fool nobody. Thanks.
Good evening. I am Mary Yearwood. I have 3 issues to raise, but I also have a personal matter which I hope I will be able to approach.
Yeah, you can deal with personal matters here, but Mary,
Right.
what was the last name?
Mary Yearwood.
Yearwood, thank you, ma'am.
Now, Prime Minister, you, during the campaign trail, you constantly said to people, you cannot educate a nation and then treat people like fools, or something along that line. It pains me to see you here after we have all been educated. We have people in positions of authority educated, and yet every minute we have to come before you to try to help to get certain issues in this country solved. Now, there's a burning issue.
That is so well said, and I put it on Saturday differently, that we have to set out to manage the daily things well so that we can go after and knock down the things that are huge that as a nation we must be doing to either build up or to wrestle down. But we got to manage the day-to-day things well, and that is what the government is supposed to do, so thank you.
You're welcome, but it's either that or we will have to cut back on the budget for education and raise fools, because I don't understand what is going on. Now, having said that, I can start with the most burning issue. The court system. Now, I know you said that you have powers of separation or something like that, which
Separation of powers.
All right, good. So therefore, you can't touch certain things, but let me see if I can touch it without getting myself in trouble. You are going out there and you are trying to get a lot of business with Guyana, especially the Indo-Guyanese. They're coming here, they're renting houses. Some of them run into problems. They end up in court. Now, it is a crying shame that a simple matter of an eviction has to end up before the CCJ. Now, Mr. AG, you said that there was a situation where y'all had changed the Constitution and tried to correct certain things by stating that the judges should bring in decisions in 6 months' time. Right? And you also went on to go very lenient with the judges and said, well, you know, well, nobody ain't really gonna charge a judge for misconduct and that type of thing. But you know what? We have been educated and we are being treated like fools. It is time to crack down on inefficiency in the legal system. You don't have the powers to do it, but you all got the brains to find a way to get it done, and I would like to see it done. The next is you.
Well, if you could hold for a second, ma'am, though,
Okay.
I think the fact that the matter has, whatever it is you're referring to, the fact that the matter has gone to the CCJ means that whichever party lost was dissatisfied with the ruling. Now, an ejectment would normally be in the magistrate's court, but I don't know what the circumstances are. But if a person has a right of appeal, certainly the Prime Minister, Cabinet, we can't take away the right of appeal from anybody. That is guaranteed. So any appellate process is going to add to the length of time for the adjudication of a matter. Is it currently in the CCJ?
I believe I mentioned that it is a crying shame that a matter of an eviction of a non-national, namely Indo-Guyanese or Haitians, would have to end up before the CCJ if it has gone to the High Court. Why is it going there when we have judges who are so trained and experienced?
Ms. Yerin, let me help you. Because as the AG was trying to explain, people have a right of appeal. And in Barbados, you have the High Court, then you have the Court of Appeal, and then you have the Caribbean Court of Justice. So I think the bigger issue ought to be how long it takes to move from first instance to the final Court of Appeal. And if that's your concern, then that's something that I think we can look. As I said, we've tried to do the systems, we've introduced technology to be able to fast track a lot of stuff. Those are things we can get done. And we need to understand why even after the introduction of those things, cases are still taking so long to move through the system. But the fact that it is at the CCJ simply means that the people who lost decided to appeal. And it may be a different person. One party might have lost at first instance in the High Court, and the next party might have even lost, or the same party might have lost in the Court of Appeal. But the system allows for 2 appeals. Okay?
Well, in this case, Prime Minister, it wasn't a matter of they having lost. It had to do with due diligence and natural justice.
That's still a part of the law. That's still a case. So the fact that they're arguing a different point from the eviction just simply means that the lawyer is choosing to say that there may not have been due process, or there may not have been due process, or there may not have been natural justice, or there may have been some other breach. So remember, at law, you can complain about the substantive act, or you can complain about the procedure, the manner in which something happens. So that's all that's happened there. Okay?
Okay. All right, let me just speed it up because this line really long. The next thing is these minibuses in Ferry Valley. Now these guys dropping off people in Time Bottom, they're taking fares and they're refusing to go into Ferry Valley.
We not only dealt with that, we've heard about it, and we were brought on rubbing shoulders on it. So I can give you the assurance that, Sante, you want to speak to it? This is a case where people don't run the full route and drop the people short, correct?
Yes,
Right.
and
Sante,
also the filthy music.
Yeah, no problem. Allow us to just deal with things quickly where I can in order to respond to as many people, because while I can stay and talk, I got public officers here, so let's
Okay.
go.
Right. So we're adding additional services onto the route. We're not going to be able to do the full day, but we're going to certainly do it in the peak hours and in the morning and in the afternoon as well. But Minister Abrams brought it to our attention yesterday as well. All right.
We also, we also said that people will be reminded of what their obligations are. And if at the end of the day you're not running the route without good cause is a road blockage or something, but you're going to have to explain why you want to keep your license.
Okay.
Straightforward.
Now the final thing. Ferry Valley, there are some people up there who were told for years that they have to be moved to accommodate the airport expansion. I just need a definitive statement from this government as to whether or not that is still going on or if that has been aborted.
I suspect, Reggie, this goes back from when last we were in government, wasn't it? And I would have to find out from you, because to the best of my knowledge, I thought most of the people had been relocated already. So the fact that you're still raising it, Dwight was in here, but I don't know where he's gone, but I'll ask him to report, and Roy, you'll get back to Ms. Yearwood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. Name is James Cox. Two things, personal matter we'll deal with on the side, and then a general question where it pertains to the time it takes for the general public to conduct business with the government in the sense of things like subdivision of land for sale. I find that it's taking way too long.
What's your name, sir?
James Cox.
James Cox.
All right. I wonder if there's a delay within your ministry in particular.
There's a delay in what?
If there's a delay in your ministry or your department in
for what?
particular.
This is for
Subdivision of property for sale.
No, in some instances, it's just simply the volume of stuff that's before us.
Well,
and also, with subdivision, it has to go to who, William? It has to go to Public Works, it has to go to Agriculture, it has to go to
Yes.
Water Authority, it has to go to multiple departments.
Yes, I understand that.
So one of the reasons I brought the senior minister in is to be able to help us fast track that. But secondly, we are also in the middle of a transition from the old department to the new board, which has been done, you want to speak, William, over the course of the last few months. And there was a backlog that was created as a result of the transition. And where are we with the backlog?
Yes, so we had a significant backlog because when the legislation was changed, and it's no longer called the Town and Country Planning Department, it's now called Planning and Development. And that meant that a board was put in place. So that board takes care of a lot of the applications for subdivision, but first they have to get comments that have to come through, as the Prime Minister said, Water Authority, Environment, and so on. And they have done about, I would say, about 50% of the backlog. They're still working through the rest of the backlog. Some people's applications are being still done under the old system, whereas others, depending on when it came in, you can opt to go into the new system. But there are a lot of applications for subdivision. And part of what is driving part of the applications for subdivision is because people, and I must speak frankly, Prime Minister, people are trying to game the system when it comes to photovoltaic systems. And what happens is this. So if you have a photovoltaic system of one size, it is a smaller size than that of a larger size. Your revenue from it, when you get to the feed-in tariff from the Barbados Light and Power, is different. So what some people have been doing is taking land and splitting it into multiple smaller sizes to get a higher return from photovoltaic systems, and that has become a problem for us.
And what did I tell you last week?
That we're going to sort it out. And I'm meeting.
No, not just sort it out. Stop it.
Yeah. So we're meeting with Fair Trading Commission to get that matter resolved. But what that has done is that has meant that we've had multiple applications that we otherwise would not get from people who want to subdivide land. so that they can get a higher rate of return from the photovoltaic system.
Okay. Let's say the process is already done where it's gone through all the various ministries, housing, etc., and it is waiting for the signature of the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister don't sign nothing.
Well, that's what I've been told from your office.
And that's, hold on. What did William, I went through, how many with you last week? 50-something?
Yeah, about 57 of them.
Uh-huh. And how many more? The majority that you are being told is on my desk, 90% of the time, it is a lie.
Oh.
It is a lie. And I'm tired of it. Ashanta, where is she? When things come and they're uploaded, I'm told then when they're uploaded, if I can't deal with them straight away, what happens? I then wait a couple of days and I still end up dealing with it. Please.
Okay. Can I speak to you, the representative? Said if you have a personal issue? All right.
Good night. My name is Corrine Barnett, and I'm here to support my daughter, Dominique Barnett. She wishes to speak on her issue with her education.
Good night. Good night. I am here on behalf of myself and the fellow student nurses of Barbados Community College. I am here on behalf of myself and the fellow students at the nursing students of Barbados Community College. We have been set to work a number of hours, 7 to 3, 1 to 9, and graveyard shifts. We have been promised a stipend to aid in our training times because we are not able to sustain ourselves. We cannot get jobs because of the long hours, the school. We go to work from 1 to 9, get off after 9 due to the lack of nurses. Then after that, we have to wake up and be at school the next day, get off from school at long hours, and then have to go right back to work. We have to get there, get back. The ones who do have jobs have been forced to sacrifice their job and clinical time. And if they sacrifice the clinical time, you're not able to complete the degree.
Let me get it investigated. I can't tell you the facts, and the Minister of Health isn't here, nor the former minister. So suffice it to say, Roy, as we've done with every other one who has come, including the last ones we settled was the nutritionist, wasn't it? So, you understand? So we will deal with them as you come. So speak to Mr. Morris, and he will speak to the Ministry of Health to get back to you all. Okay? Thank you.
As her parent, her single parent.
I understand, ma'am, but look at the line behind you.
I'm with her.
Hold on, look at the line. If we're dealing with the same issue and not being offensive, but if we take longer with you, it means that we're gonna have to cut some at the back. Straight talk. Because I've got public officers here who need to go as well. So if it's the same issue, I hear you, you know. That's why they come to Roy.
It is not the same issue.
Okay,
it's
fine.
related to the issue, but it is not the
No, but
same
if it's
issue.
related to the issue, I'm begging you to allow others to speak. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
I can solve it, you know.
Okay.
All right, so come forward and we can deal with it. That's I don't want you not to come forward.
Thank
but they're
you.
saying thank you. Next person.
Hi, good night. My name is Ross Chase. Two quick questions. First, I was wondering, given the latest release of the BERT program.
Sorry, just to also tell you that the stipend was approved by the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strong was telling me. So it therefore, hold on, the Ministry of Finance approved it. As to why you haven't gotten it yet, we need to find out. That's why I'm saying just check it out, okay? Go ahead, sir. What's your name?
Ross Chase.
Okay.
So I have a long working history and career. Spent the last 11 years working in power as a power chemist at Barbados Land and Power. But recently decided I wanted to transfer into data analytics. Actually took up some of the courses offered through the NTI Coursera to aid in the transition. So the question is about, well, I read the recent release about the BERT program, the second one, where you had stated that you're planning on implementing a data analytics.
Not this year, but at some
know
point
not this year,
during the
but-
course of the BERT program, we will.
Right.
Statistics and data analytics
So
entity.
I'm wondering, I'm thinking about, given the fact that I'm not the only one, a lot of us that have done the program, the cohort, are just wondering how the government plans to integrate some of us who have already been trained and know and actually working within the field now.
What I'm going to do is to ask you after the town hall meeting finishes to have a conversation with this gentleman to my right, whose responsibility it will be to make sure that that agency comes into play at some point in the next 12 to 18 months. Yeah?
So that was the first one. Then the second one, I'm asking as proxy for my girlfriend. Her name is Monique Clark. She's a serial entrepreneur, 60 years in business. Actually is here in Barbados, but originally from overseas, US. So she's taken an interest in potentially getting into the medicinal cannabis program. And she was wondering, given the exorbitant price of the licenses and stuff, if there is any way, because not only for her, but general for the public, if there are any plans to do any sort of co-ops and that sort of stuff.
And Dar, you want to speak for 2 minutes on it? Don't be long, because I want you to hear the others. So the Minister of Agriculture will explain to you what's likely to happen there.
Hey, good night. Yeah, thanks for your question. In actual fact, we are creating what is called ecosystems for people who cannot afford licenses, so that we put people to work in groups or in co-ops. And what the government would do is provide them with the opportunity to do cultivation or processing. We're seeking to create systems where people who came out of the feed program can transition into cultivation, and then those people who form co-ops can also be a part of the ecosystem that we're creating for people to be able to do cultivation to feed into a processing system.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Take care. Yes, ma'am.
Good night. My name is Katrina Herod. Hi.
Sorry?
Yeah. Question about the incinerators at the hospital and the environmental impact. Katrina Herod.
The question relates to what, sorry?
The incinerators at your hospital and the
Incinerators.
environmental impact.
What's the question?
If you did surveys around like the community and how is it impacting the people that's there?
I wish I could tell you, but I can't. But we can find out for you.
All right. The next question, all right, is a personal issue, but I just asking a general question. Who's in charge of a child that is a ward of the state?
The state.
Yes, please.
The state.
Well, the child care board is supposed to be involved in it, like checking upon your child and everything.
Depends on where they are, but I feel that you need to come and have this conversation quietly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, love. Shanta? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good night. I live at 11F Wharton in Christchurch. My name is Rosalind Jones.
Rosalind?
Jones.
Jones.
Yeah, I have a fear that I'm living in. About 2 months ago, me and my 2 daughters were sitting in the living room. All of a sudden, the house went dark. I look out, I see everybody had electricity sent to me.
It's the same thing I talked about earlier.
Yeah, but I can go further than that. I said, if someone let a plane, a prank on me. Anyhow, I called Light and Power. They gave me some tips to run through. But I don't deal with electricity, I'm afraid. I call a junior electrician in my neighborhood. He come and he do the same tips, electricity and restore. We decided we're going to try a senior one. He came and he did the same thing. The last thing they did is to check the meter box. When they checked the meter box, a wire was burned out. And I'm living in fear because they do like a mixture something. I don't know how long it's going to last. And Christmas is around the corner, and we should be pulling a lot of current.
Fair enough. As I said, I dealt with this on Monday, and I will treat to this as a matter of urgency.
Yeah.
Come, and we will make sure that your particular instance is inspected urgently.
Another issue.
Because I made the point, there's a public safety issue. Okay?
Okay, there's another issue. When my house was rewiring, I had a 65-inch television on the wall. It had to be taken down to complete the rewiring. I left it very good, but the night I turn it on, I see this light like a starlight. I asked electrician, what's going on here? He tell me the TV had to get a crack, and that's the ink that was coming from the television. It shows 2 single lights, and then it blank out. The only thing I do is cry.
If something happened then, put in the claim once you can prove
I
it.
call the...
You made a report.
I make a report to
At the
National
time?
Housing, to
Good.
the person in charge of the wiring. He tell me there's nothing he can do because the electrician haven't touched nothing in my house. So that's meaning...
With all due respect, you come. They need to deal with the electrician, not you. Go on. Come.
My Prime Minister,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bradshaw. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. I am from St. Michael's East, but I'm not, don't worry about Mr. Michael Howell. I am Michael Howell, and I am the general worker once at St. John's School that my Prime Minister, Minister of Education, gave me that weed whacker when the principal refused to bite. I got a little problem. I don't want to walk it now, but I want some help. I have a daughter who have 2 kids, and she now get a little pig in the road. Up the last Friday night, she get evicted. But no, ma'am, a little more than that. No, ma'am, a little more than that. I understand, a little more than that. No, a little more than that. A little more than that. The urban, somebody introduced her to the urban development, and they asked me to bring the papers, my land. I took it. They asked me to write a letter giving them permission to build. It is not building. More than 50% of the work done. We only want some help to finish.
Brother, come out. We're going to talk. Come out. Come out, Roy. Come out. You can't try fast one on Mr. Howard. We can deal with it. You can't try fast one.
Good night. My name is Janice Glucci. I'm here on 2 issues. I live in Fairholme Gardens in Maxwell, and there is a serious problem of overgrown lots, which nobody's attending to. You try to report. Initially, we used to go to a particular area to report it, but nothing has been done. And that is a real serious problem from only pests, but also danger with being, probably.
I hear you. And the MP as well as the minister are both here. Adrian, Ralph, can we follow up, please?
And there's one
Fairholme
other.
Gardens is you, right? Yes.
And,
And Adrian, can we please?
And there's another issue. I have lived up.
The legislation coming soon, though, as I said on Saturday, to hold landowners accountable. Because if you're going to own land, you have to be prepared to keep the land clean too.
Yeah,
Simple as that.
because for the last 2 years, we have been putting together to clear it because it was in our best interest, but I don't even think that it's fair that you own that land and we
I
are
agree with you.
responsible.
We can deal with it.
All right, another more serious one is in the area where I live, directly actually in front of my home, where it is about 8 years ago, because I lived in there from about 30-something years, and about 8 years ago, we seem to be having flooding in the particular gap that we live in. It is
Which gap is that?
This is Maxwell Park. It's right behind the Golden Sands Hotel.
Y'all went to Maxwell yesterday when I had to leave to go to the funeral the day before.
Yeah.
Was that part of where you went?
Because each time it rains, like how it rained a couple of weeks ago, we can't get in or out.
Okay, no problem. Mr. Yerwood, Santia, we can arrange, Ralph, we can arrange to have a site visit to follow up.
Yeah.
Maxwell Park.
Maxwell Park, right behind Golden Sands Hotel. In that
Behind
area,
Golden
the road
Sands.
right there, and you can't drive in or out because the water rises too high. You can't walk out because there's no way to walk out. It's a cul-de-sac. So we are stranded for sometimes 2 days till the water goes down. So that's a real serious issue because if anybody is ill, you can't make it out.
No problem. Use the mic. Use the mic, Ralph.
Scallucci. Look, we visited that about 3-4 years ago, and we were told there's some relationship between the tides, the ocean tides, and the flooding that you get there. It's a very difficult problem, but we visited that with the MTW officials about 3-4 years ago. No, use the mic, use the mic. I know exactly the area you're talking about.
It's amazing you say that because as I said, I lived there for about almost 30-something years.
Yes.
And prior to 8 years ago, we didn't have that problem. There were always tides, as far as I'm aware. So there has to be some particular problem. I think it's the drainage. I think when some persons were constructing the area, that they allowed the water to wash into the drains, and I think they got blocks in the down
I
there.
hope it is the drainage because that can be fixed easily.
Yeah, because that's
But
what
some
I'm
time
saying.
ago, we visited with Mr. Daisley and another engineer. We were told it had some relationship to
No,
the
I
tides.
can tell you. I lived there. When I lived there, I was about the fourth person who built up
Ms.
there.
Scallucci, if it's the drains, we are very happy to hear that. It will be fixed.
Thank you so much.
But also, DPM will go with the MP and Mr. Yerwood. And as I said, we've been going around looking at a number of areas. So rest assured, we'll look at it.
Okay, thank you so
Okay,
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scallucci.
I seeing people join the line. I got to remind people that we're going to end up shutting down soon. So let us be clear that we may not be able to get to everybody if people join in the line. I am fooling you. I am fooling you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Because we've been
good
going
evening.
3 hours now almost.
Good evening, Prime Minister and the panel. My name is Lisa Samantha Ruck. Prime Minister, I have watched you. I have lived outside of Barbados for 11 years now. And I have watched you implement initiatives and strategies to bring this country forward and develop. Last year and this year, and recently in your speech, you gave a call to action for returning nationals, for educated Barbadians to come back home and contribute to this country. I was educated here in Barbados. I did CXC, I went to UE, and I became an educator, and I fell in love with it. And then I went overseas and studied and stayed. I listened to your call to action to come back home. I have reached the heights of an English professor in Italy. I'm an instructional designer. I'm a curriculum developer. I have come home a year, and I have been unable to find employment. I would like to ask the same policies that have been put in place for...
There's other stuff out there that's about to happen. So that's why I'm saying come and have
It's
the
not a personal
conversation.
issue. It's, I would say many people, young people my age, that want to come home and contribute to this country. An entire program was put in place for welcome stampers, foreigners, to come home, to come to Barbados and settle and establish lives here. I would not have been able to do so if not for my mother's house. I would have been on the street by now. I have come home, and many other people my age as Barbadians have come home, and we would like a program put in place for us to come and contribute our expertise and knowledge to our country. I am tired of teaching in rich countries. I have taught rich countries for years.
Perhaps what I'm saying to you, that's why you see me look around to ask where Minister Simmons is, because this is his first day as Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade, and Diasporic Affairs. We have had a facilitation unit for returning nationals for Reggie, how long? 25 years? But perhaps what needs to be done, and I'm hearing you loud and clear, is that it needs to be also expanded to include a provision for those who are younger, who are not coming home
To
just to
retire.
retire,
I'm not
but who are coming.
retiring.
That's the point I'm making. So I've heard you loud and clear, my dear, and what I'm saying to you is that we will speak to the minister tomorrow morning in his cabinet, and we will say to him that he may have as one of his first duties to look to see how he can redirect and refocus. Yes, we continue to do all the things that we were doing, but we need now to add to it to be able to ensure that we don't lose good people who have come home who the system needs. Because believe you me, the system needs us. And I'm saying to you that if there's one problem we have is not having enough people. Now, all of it may not be government, because there are a lot of services, Sanjay would tell you, that where people can provide private services, but they're needed in the educational system, either broadly or by parents who having particular difficulties.
Okay.
So I thank you for bringing the issue to the fore and give you the assurance that we will follow through on it.
The other note is on the note of education. As an educator for 13 years, I see that we have gone back to the major extent is business as usual here in Barbados, just sending the students back to school. And I would plead as a person who taught at primary school here in Barbados, and I teach at university overseas, that we need to take the step towards blended learning and blended initiatives and getting that built out. That is my specialty, and I think it's the only way that we can fill that gap that our students have had to endure the last 2 years. We basically lost 2 years of schooling. And in any way I can, I would love to be involved in that process, because I believe that we need that in our educational system for real transformational change. And you spoke about this at Coursera this year.
No problem. You give me a short paper on it, and I will ensure that the Ministry of Education, in the context of the education reform, will also meet with you.
Thank
That's
you.
fair?
Yes.
I look forward to receiving it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last note is on mental health. I know we speak about this in Barbados. We're more open to talking about it. And I don't know if you guys remember, back in the day, they had the Samaritans. And if someone was in distress and they needed that last glimmer of hope to talk to somebody, they could have 4299999. I have been home for a year struggling and reaching some very deep and dark points. And I can tell you that there's no help for people here in the immediate to get the assistance. Last week, I reached a very deep and dark point, and I could not. And we've all had those moments. COVID has been hard, and we've lost a lot. And I called 911. You know what they told me? That I need to get to the psychiatric hospital or the QEH. Help me to understand. So I'm supposed to gather my suicidal self together and get the presence of mind to find myself down at the QEH.
My dear,
help me to understand.
I have heard you, and I've also asked the Ministry of Health from the time COVID came in, but in particular this year, to put a framework in place for the review of mental health. I don't think we understand what the last decade did. To begin with, we were on a trajectory that was too slow. That's the truth. As a small island developing state, because you got difficult issues to contend with and to juggle. But when you add COVID to that, and when you add then the fact that for a decade our economy did not grow, for a decade, we could not invest in institutions. For a decade, we didn't invest in institutions. Do you understand the point from which we are still trying to come?
Yes.
So I thank you. And that's why these meetings are important. Because I don't need to be the one hearing it. Everybody else needs to be hearing it. Because when they hear it, we begin to understand how we as a society. Give me a chance back there, please. Brethren, give us a chance back there. Once others in the society are hearing it, and are hearing it sufficiently, they begin to understand, you know something? Mental wellness is something that this country, all of us got to deal with. We heard earlier with the animals, it's something that all of us got to deal with. We hear different with the blocking up of drains and all of the things. Ms. Colucci, if you believe, as might be the case, as Ralph said, that in the construction of houses, things may have gone down the drain and literally blocked the drain from being able to be free. Why we go to a lot of these private housing developments? It's only in the last few years that town planning, last decade, 15 years, that town planning has got ignorant with people with private developments. But half the developments in St. Philip in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, Mr. Yearwood nodding his head, did not comply with anything called drainage. People sell the lots, build houses, and go along about the business with the profits. And the government now left to clean up all of the damage, and the people privatize the profits and socialize the losses. So I thank you for raising it, because I know that the subjects that you're raising are not easy subjects to be raised, and I'm conscious of it. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a good evening.
You too, my dear. And please don't forget the paper for me. Okay, Mr. Morris, you'll follow up with her. Yes, Santi, just cheer for me, please. I have to.
Pleasant night to each and everyone. Member of Parliament Strong. How are you doing, sir? All right, I want to read this quote from the Prime Minister at St. James Speaks. And the Prime Minister said, "We have very few options left to make money as a country." So in the interest of time, I'm going to only address one matter. And that is the ability or the inability for Barbados, Incorporated Barbados, or Sovereign Nation Barbados, to generate direct revenue. What I call direct revenue, it's revenue that is coming from entities such like a national bank, a state insurance corporation, light and power plant, whether if you own the plant or have majority shares, telephone, airport, seaport, oil terminal, sugar industry, etc. Those are what I call direct revenue generating entities. Indirect revenue for me are taxes, fees, and borrowing. Everything that is spoken of here tonight requires finance, every single thing. I am concerned that Barbados, as a sovereign nation, an incorporated entity, is losing its ability to generate direct revenue because of the sales and leasing of these said very state-owned entities. You understand what I'm saying, Mr. Strong? So my question is this. Seeing that the incorporated entity should be generating its own revenue to do the capital works that is needed, rather than having to hit the pockets of the private citizens. If we continue to sell these state-owned entities that generate this money, what is going to happen with the public, the people of Barbados? In my view, they have now been turned into a nation working just to pay taxes, fees, and pay back borrowed money. My observation, and I might very well be wrong, are that these 10 entities, for example, that I just mentioned to you, bring in direct revenue. For example, let's say they each brought in $18 million every 6 months, for example. That's a lot of money. But if we sell them, I don't think we're going to get back that money. But we're going to still need that money because the country already, the standard of living is already predicated on that revenue that comes in. if we sell those, we're not going to have that direct revenue. And my observation tells me, and I may be wrong, that that is going to require an increase in taxes, fees, and borrowing. Could you help me on that?
Thank you, sir. I'm going to ask Ryan, since you have directed your question to Ryan,
Yes.
to just respond.
Thanks, Colin.
You're welcome.
There are always two sides to the equation. And Barbados' development to date has been financed through long-term borrowing. Now, you've identified a number of state-owned enterprises or entities that you view as being
Direct-
as generating
Direct revenue generating entities, yes.
Just bear in mind that citizens, through taxation, have had to finance the operations of said entities over time, and the extent to which the government and successive governments have determined that some entities, depending on the stage of development, can best be managed or financed directly by the public owning said entities. And I think that we must come to appreciation that as part of the development cycle, there are things that government may have done in 1966 that is not necessarily relevant for government to be the direct player in 2022. And I think we've seen an evolution of that through time, and the extent to which we may differ in terms of whether the government needs to own a bank or own an insurance entity, as opposed to allowing ordinary citizens to be enfranchised with respect to those specific entities in order to generate wealth in the country. Now, I accept that there may be some regulatory matters that we may want to, that still needs to be addressed, but wherever there is, as you refer to direct revenue, there is expenditure that has to be financed, and therefore you can't just look at the top line without looking at literally the bottom line with respect to the expenditure.
I'm going to call off here because I see that the Prime Minister is saying to...
I was telling him to start to wrap up because it is 10 o'clock.
Yes.
And with all due respect, that there
Yeah.
are public officers here who have to be allowed to go to work tomorrow. So it means that the majority of you on the line will not get to speak.
Yeah.
We'll take two more people and then we'll cut off. All right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Two more people.
Good night, Madam Prime Minister, Mr. Strawn, Fabian Aristide. I have a simple situation that is affecting all of us in this country. A man would work, for example, to paint a little house for the Prime Minister. She pays him with a check.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Fabian Aristide.
Fabian?
Aristide. Ryan knows me well.
Spell your last name.
Eristhee.
Eristhee.
Double E. Yeah.
Good. Go ahead, sir.
The problem is this. Ryan may pay me as a worker with a check. I take this check and I go on to Ryan's bank with the relevant two IDs. The bank that tell me, listen, you got account here? I say no. So you can't get it cash. You go carry it to your bank. But you know what? I got the rest of fellas with me that they go pay the little rent. They go feed the children. I take it to my bank. My bank is telling me 3 to 4 working days. Sorry, 3 to 4 working days to get this check cash. Why it is?
That is why the whole question in the last round, to address it again too. Part of the difficulty is also verification of people and ID and our ability to be able to shift to a digital payments framework so that you don't and will not have these problems. Ryan, you want to speak quickly as I'm conscious, and I'm really suggesting to the others, the lady is going to be the last one we're taking for the night. So if there's anything else, if there's anything personal with anybody, come now to the others who can deal with it. If it is something that is of a national issue, I'm encouraging you to write us I'm encouraging you to write me, and Roy will work with me to follow up for you. But with the best will in the world, we have to be able to bring it to an end in order to allow the officers to go home tonight. Okay?
Yeah, just
you.
very quickly, PM. There has been over time a significant amount of check fraud, which actually costs institutions and businesses a great deal. Now, what we have been with the entire financial sector is to digitize the entire payment system so that the issues that you are highlighting here will not be an issue going forward, because obviously if you come to my property to do something, I will have the ability to pay you digitally, and therefore you can then pay your workers or whoever in real time. And therefore we are working on concluding those arrangements with the banks and the credit unions to be able to have greater financial inclusion in the country, so that the time it takes you to go to the bank, that would be cut out. The time it takes then for you to then go and do the reconciliation, those 3 days and all of that would be cut out, so that we can get more business in the country. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. Sir, she's the last, you know. Yeah.
Good night, Madam Prime Minister. Good night, ministers.
You have to speak into the mic, ma'am.
Is this better? Thank you.
Or just hold the mic out, because when you look down to read, your voice is dropping. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Madam Prime Minister, I am a public servant for the last 23 years. I have some
What's
concerns.
the name, sorry?
Teresa Small, sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
I have some concerns that I, unfortunately or fortunately, falls within your ministry, the Ministry of the Civil Service.
If it's personal to you, then I'm going to ask you to hold back and speak to the others.
Well,
if it is systemic and not about you, then talk. But
okay.
if it's personal to you, I really have, especially in this particular instance, because I may well be the person who has to make a judgment, and you don't want to prejudice the case, in which case I will have to recuse myself. And I was about to say, give it to Santia, but if she is here too, she gonna have to recuse herself too, and we gotta find a minister who not here. You understand?
I don't think you will have to do that, Madam Prime Minister.
So therefore, I would suggest that if it is personal, let us deal with it in a proper way. And if it's public service is not processing it quick enough, which is a case of pace, then Mr. Morris will help me find out, and we will get an answer.
Mr. Morris is quite familiar with this, aren't you?
And if he is, then it means that we're dealing with it. You come and speak to him.
Okay, thank you.
Because the fact that he hasn't dealt with it as quickly as you would like, then the thing. Gentlemen, come up, Star. You come. Fair is fair. Thank you. What's the name?
Don Cresson Moore.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just try to make this quick. So first question would be, can a bank...
Don what?
Don Cresson Moore.
Spell the middle name.
No, his first name, D-O-N,
right.
K-R-I-S-O-N.
K-R-I-S-O-N. N?
Yeah.
Hyphen?
Moore. No hyphen.
Cresson
Last name is
Moore
Moore.
is one word.
Don Cresson, yes.
Okay, got you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Thanks.
So can a bank hold the deeds for one property and demand payment for a fee, real or imagined, for another property before they release your deeds? Is that
Depends
legal
on what
or
you
illegal?
agreed to, but AG, depends on what you agreed to with the bank. So if, hold on, AG.
PM may know this gentleman's name very well. He sends me emails every week.
Well, we weren't supposed to make it personal, so I didn't mention anything.
So what I'm saying is that based on the matters that you've raised with me, it might not be advisable to raise those matters here.
Okay. So second question then, as we're not going to deal with that. Is there a law, legislation, an act, or regulation that prohibits a citizen of Barbados to to speak in court, whether they represent themselves or are represented by counsel?
Can't tell you that there's a law, but the person who's in charge of the court is who? The judge.
Which must follow the law, right?
And if the judge breaches the law, remember what I told women's here, what is? That there are two what? Two appellate courts. So if a judge wrongfully shuts you down when you have right to due process and natural justice, where do you go next? Upstairs.
Okay.
So hold on,
Yeah,
and let's be clear. You're asking us to posit on a situation, to comment on a situation without knowing all of the facts. Now, in the same way that I will not do it against you, I will not do it for you. And that is one of the reasons why oaths have no fear or favor. Okay?
Okay. And the last one, because of interest of time. What is the process to request that a judge that is presiding over your matter officially recuse themselves?
An application, AG?
Where an interested party has a feeling or view that a judge has a conflict of interest, he should apply to that judge and ask that the judge recuse him or herself if he or she is not satisfied with that decision. Because it is a decision, he is able to appeal to the higher court.
Okay, and where can I get this application? Is it a form or is it just a letter?
I think that it is always better if you seek specific legal advice in relation to your specific matter.
As long as it's a competent lawyer, correct?
And we have about 1,500 of those in Barbados.
So, Mr. Chris Amore, it sounds to me, in all fairness, that you have a difficulty that you need to be able to go and get legal advice on, proper legal advice. And if a lawyer has not given you that, then there are ways to be able to deal with it, aren't there, AG? And if they have acted in a way that is improper, there are also ways to deal with that too. Okay? So I say no more at this stage, but the point is the system does allow for it, because the system does not believe that everybody who gives legal or medical advice or engineering advice is in fact doing the right thing. All right? I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. No, we're done. We'll talk after. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Ms. Waith, give me a chance. So that what we're trying to do is to make sure that wherever possible, we can follow up. Those things that have been raised publicly, we will continue to work on and advance. Like, I think it was Ms. Ruck who spoke to us about the expansion of the Returning Nationals Unit. And those things that are individual, my officers all have a list. We cannot promise you we can solve everything, but we promise you we're going to investigate and try our best to get as close as possible to resolution in all of these issues. Thank you for coming out, and have a good evening.